Dude, what's going on, everyone? Welcome in. Glad to be back. Oh, God damn, let me process for one day, dude. So true, dude. Ugh. Hey, man. I know, dude. The chicken lore is much too much, dude. You can't process all of that in one day, dude, you know? It's perfectly understandable. But no, we're gonna be getting Amirah in here to chat about it relatively soon. And yeah, dude. Yeah, Smotown, yeah, dude. Dude, I already got it pulled up, dude. It's right here, dude. It's gonna be sick. I'm super fucking excited to watch that. Alright. I'm gonna give Amirah a call. Yo!
Yo, I'm just checking, yeah, I think my mic settings are right. One sec.
Yeah, no problem.
Is stream up?
Yes, stream is up.
Alright, let's go. So I guess we should just get on to what I was looking at before when you hit me up for this. Um, oh yeah, the stance transitions thing. So I was looking at this stuff in this app, Lossless Cut, which is really good
Okay.
for videos or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I also found it's really good for measuring frame timings, is because
Okay.
it starts up really fast or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But so I was just comparing this with the 58 AO 58
Right, yes.
frame data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just noticed it lined up pretty well
Yeah.
with the initial charge of the what happened there? Oh, I think I zoomed in.
It's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
good.
Um,
Dude, it's awesome that you bring that up too, specifically A058, because that was what I was thinking the martial arts based moveset was going to be as well, because like a lot of people thought that A055 was going to be the one that was the martial arts based weapon. So I'm glad to see, or kind of have confirmation, at least from your analysis thus far, that it does align pretty well with what we're seeing in the frame data.
Yeah, the only part where it kind of like it doesn't seem like, see, this is 17, this is in 60,
Yeah,
and then if you look in the frame data, it's like 8 before it gets to the charge release window.
right.
And then if you look at the actual like release startup, it's 5 frames. Also, I'm not indexing from 1 for the sake of just understanding here. That's the kind of more official fighting game way or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
for when there's like kind of several layers to this and timings, it just makes more sense to do it this way for me.
Yeah, of course.
So that is, as we said, 5 frames. So this is 13
Welcome
based
in, by
off
the way,
how I
Octo.
judged when the cancel happens. It could be a bit off, but like that feels within a pretty like
Oh
not
yeah,
too bad
dude.
margin of
Yeah.
error. Like it
Yeah.
feels right. But
Mm-hmm.
then here is where it gets weird. We hit him, and then
Mm-hmm.
the moment it happens, basically instantly it ends up canceling into this follow-up kick. I think it's right about
Yeah.
here we see the most clear, and that's 7 frames at 60, which is only like 3 at 30.
Oh
So,
jeez.
and if you look at the frame data, that doesn't seem to line up, right?
Right.
It depends on like what attack frame. Let's say, let's be generous
Mm-hmm.
and say it hit on the, that wouldn't be the 8th frame, like, because I'm saying 0th, but
Mm-hmm.
on like 8 frames in, right? Because uh one thing that's kind of weird is the game, I'm pretty sure, does
Welcome
for
in,
some
Mozone and
reason
Ice
like
Cold.
a
Good to
whole
see you, Quiso.
1/30th
We're just
frame
having
time
a
after the attack window
discussion.
ends. Technically, it
Yep.
still could hit them. uh I've tested this, and it's pretty weird. I assume it'd be like 1 extra real frame
Mm-hmm.
or maybe 2 extra, but no,
Right.
it's just that amount of frame time, and it must be due to like how specifically they um I don't know, program the fucking
Well,
hitboxes or
yeah, and
whatever.
like that's the other part of this too. Is like you look at like the light greatsword, for example, too. You know what I mean? And like the each individual presses of that just look like it's all one attack, you know what I mean? Like that's how good they're getting with just the seamless transition between actual inputs, you know?
Yeah, and it makes me wonder. It looks like these are different inputs because of the sudden animation changes. Like these don't look completely like fluid when you look at them like ridiculous. Like they look fluid in real time, of
Yes.
course, but when you look closer, you can tell these seem to be separate actions that you
Mm-hmm.
press, right?
Yeah.
But um maybe like theoretically this could have, but then that would not line up with the previous time, I don't feel. So I think what's more likely possible is these cancels later in the R2 release animation actually were changed to happen sooner by the time like in the DLC here, right? Because
Right.
this frame data here
Yes.
could be all the way back before Elden Ring was even released, right? They
Exactly.
just forgot to
Yes.
prune the stuff and they were originally planning to put it in the base game, right?
Yes. Yep.
So by the time they get by the DLC, there's almost certainly going to be some changes.
Oh yeah, yeah, most certainly. Yeah. Yeah, what we have right here with just the 5, you know, the 5 weapon type frame data, like that this is most certainly outdated in some way, shape, or form, you know. We're missing all like a lot of the tweaks that they've done, you know.
Mhm.
It just kind of makes sense, right? And
But
also
what
oh, I was gonna ask you a question. Like, what frame data are you specifically looking at in A058? Because the one-handed moveset, two-handed, power stance, and offhand is all unique, too. So,
Yeah, I'm
which one are
looking at the
you?
two hand, but that is
Okay,
an assumption because like see this here, even though this is like a two palm strike,
yeah,
maybe just the Ash of War and the Ash of War just use both your hands, right?
right,
Maybe this, and because this does look like a one-handed fist star one, right? You don't really
yeah,
see this on the two-handed fist.
right.
So we could go and look at that, and maybe that would be more accurate.
Potentially, potentially. Well, it's worth looking at the power stance too. You know what I mean? The paired L1s. Because potentially,
Yeah.
like, that's completely different. Like, that has 3 attacks associated with the first input press, dude. So maybe that's what we're seeing right there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, and that's all just one
Mm,
press. You see what I mean? Because like the L1-2 of the paired moveset, that, you know, it strikes with 2 very closely to each other, and that could be the double palm strike too. But like honestly, it's so hard to tell. But I
yeah.
think it's getting more increasingly likely that A058 is indeed the dry leaf arts that we're seeing in the trailer.
Mm,
You know,
mm, it may be.
welcome in,
But
guys.
like
It's
looking at
it's it's good
the one
to
hand,
it's good
like
to
it
have you
seems to
back, dude.
align less with it. Like what's interesting here, I can actually pull this up so you can look at it.
Yeah, if you
Um,
don't mind, share your full screen so you can just drag and, you know, keep bringing stuff in as we go.
mm, I
If
could,
you
but
if
I
you don't
wanna
mind.
wanna well, I wouldn't wanna like set up things a certain way,
Yeah, no, that's completely fine.
artistic.
It's all good. Yeah, yeah.
I'll just it might be it should be easy for me to like just switch between
Okay, okay.
windows.
Applications. Yes, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. No, that works
So just
perfectly.
ta-da, and then
Yeah, beautiful.
like look at
Yep.
this. Then you see these were the two I was looking at, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah, the R2. Yeah, specifically.
frames
Yep.
5, and then here's like where the gap feels weird, right?
Yeah, a
But
bit.
also what makes me think it might be a weapon art because that would be the fastest and most like realistic, even if they did edit this. But then if we compare this with the one-handed,
Mm-hmm.
it looks very different. Instead of it being like
Extremely.
slower on the initial charge to release, it's faster on that, but slower on the actual release startup, which doesn't seem to align with the data. But it does
Right.
have a much faster heavy attack startup, but
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't really look like a heavy attack. That just looks like a instant,
Yeah.
like one shot move. Like
Yeah.
it's like a well, not like one shot,
Oh, I
just
know
like
what you mean. I know what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, where's
Doesn't look
the
like something chargeable.
let me pull this up too. Where did I have this pulled up at? Oh, I was looking for just a gameplay compilation of everything. Let me pull up that exact moment on stream too. Yeah.
Is there any like unused like animation data in the weapon art section? Because
I
perhaps
I
like
don't know. Like what I do know though is in one of the videos the breakdown specifically this portion after the double palm strike, this what he does after that kick, that like drop kick, you know, with the multi-hit kicks first, that is actually the Ash of War. Somebody actually did disclose that
what is
specifically.
the oh yeah
This
the triple
portion.
kick?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Here I can, or you're probably showing it on stream, so I
Hmm.
don't
Yeah,
need to.
yeah,
But
yep.
yeah. Also, the interesting thing about that I noticed, they said it has like hyper armor stuff, but even on its own,
Hmm.
I guess would probably be a good time to go back to that then for me as well, so I can show specifically. But
Yeah.
um, even on this thing's own, it's pretty crazy because um, I'm pretty sure, like, where did I determine that it started?
The startup on this Ash is crazy, dude. It's
I think it's
actually
like, I think it's
wild.
like, the thing is, it could be wrong because all this is literally going off like judging when the movement starts.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Um,
As to the
like
actual specifics of it, like, sure, but regardless of that, just visually it's very fast too, you know?
wait, so he raises and okay, so I'm pretty sure this is the frame before because like the
Yeah.
hits and the animation, like it's usually like with the frame. Actually, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like I don't know the exact
Yeah,
frame
exactly.
semantics
Right,
right now,
yeah,
but
yeah.
30 frames in 60, which is like 15 in 30.
Hmm.
So that's just about like that's like the equivalent of an I-16 attack, right?
Right,
This is
yes.
something like fucking dual spears L1.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
thereabouts, yeah.
yeah, the animation might be a lot more obvious,
Yeah, exactly.
or whatever. And
Hmm.
this is like point blank,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Full range might be a bit more or something like that. But and there's so many nuances that could be there, but even just being able to have like this amount of speed for an action war like this
Hmm.
feels like really cool because you could
Yeah.
have this option as like a threat, right?
Yes, exactly. Constantly. Yeah, just always having to force your opponent to worry about something like that. And clearly like and it's tough too, right? Because it's like is the first like kick that hits, you know, first, is that going to poise break in PvP? You know
I
what I
feel
mean?
like
Like it.
it has to. Like the only way you can make this even remotely fine and have it not poise break is if the tracking is like just complete tracking, right?
Right, yeah, yeah.
And even then, I feel like depending on how you do, you might fuck it up in the way that they could roll back and then just get like a free punish without really much thinking there, right? They just
Right.
poise break it.
Mhm.
So I think it is very likely to poise break. Um, but I do wonder if this is also just going to be like a full combo too.
Yeah, I know
Um,
exactly. Or if you're going to be able to roll before like they do the
the third
downwards
hit,
kick. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Cuz
Like
it
I
it
feel
is
like in that
4
case,
hitboxes there. It's 3
it
kicks
is
and then it's yeah, yeah.
2, 3. Oh,
It's
one,
3
two,
kicks
three.
and then it's 4. Yeah, the fourth one.
I
Mhm.
feel like yeah, like I feel like doing it having a full combo would be fine. Just make its damage like I guess like less in PvP. Also one thing
Mhm.
that would like make a lot of these things easier is not to get into too much, but like combo damage negation, right? Or like repeated hits on players like reduces the damage or something. This would allow
Yeah.
for like a lot more things like this, but not to get
Agreed.
into it.
Yeah.
But basically, depending on if this final fourth hit combos or not, it
Mhm.
will be the difference between I I wonder if this knocks down. Like, imagine if this face planted.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
dude, if it pancakes people, oh my god, that would be
Yeah.
incredible. Like, we can't tell if that's actually happening, because that would happen on the actual PvE ad, if not for them actually dying. You know what I mean? We would have been
Yeah,
able to see that,
exactly.
but yeah.
Um, it yeah, it really depends. But I
Hmm.
feel like if you're able to roll it, it's certainly going to be at best a situation where it's kind of like almost neutral in the
Hmm.
sense that like by
Yeah,
the time they
exactly.
recover the roll, then you're
Yep.
just going to be a neutral again.
Hmm.
Or it's actually going to be like advantageous for the player rolling in.
Right,
And it's going to be like
potentially.
a reverse mix up, which might be a bit like of an
Hmm.
oversight or cancer, but yeah, because
Yeah,
I don't think I think this is all one input, or do you think this is all
I,
one
I,
input
I
or
would
what?
I would imagine like it's very fast. Like, the only thing that I would think is, like, maybe you have to press R2 after the L2 press for the last part, the last kick. That would be the
Yeah,
only part where I could see an extension coming from. But
it
I
looks so
really do
seamless
feel like
though.
it's all one anim, yeah.
Yeah, it
Or
looks so
one input,
seamless.
rather.
So it seems most likely that it is just one input.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, hmm.
But once
What I was
again, like it's so difficult to tell with something like the light greatsword, for example, you know, where it all just looks like you can't even tell when the person's pressing the follow up, you know. So
thankfully, what was her name? Like Yumai or Yue or something?
yeah, UI, yep, yep.
UI. Their
Yeah, their
video
video was
on
very informative. I appreciated
they
that.
specifically said the button presses, like the amount of button presses with like the like greatsword stuff. So that was really
I
useful.
know, right? Yeah, yeah,
Here, look at that, but I just wanted like to think with this too.
yeah, yeah. Of
Another
course.
thing that might be this weapon art's like weakness a bit is because it might be like if say it reminds me a bit of like barbaric roar, right? Like if someone like tries to read you to trade with it or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And then you roll back, then it's kind of a situation where you can technically get a punish, right? But
Hmm.
you need to know like the timing of each of the follow-up swings and like
Yes.
space it and then punish it.
Hmm.
And
Well,
when it comes to a lot of these things, it really depends on like the motion of each of these attacks and the
yeah,
timing,
I know.
and if you have to like roll again. But
Hmm.
I feel like with how this looks, it's likely that if you roll the first thing, then you can move to simply get like a punish. I don't know if there's anything they can do, so
Right.
that might be the main weakness of
Well, and
this.
yeah, exactly. And there's another scenario too where the last portion, that big kick at the end where you drop down, has a different variance in tracking too. So if like it sends you out
Yeah.
for the first three and then the kick like has infinite tracking and then it tracks wherever you end up afterward. Like that's
Mhm.
insane if so.
Yeah. Oh,
Too.
you know what would be so fucking cool
Mhm.
is if it was indeed a combo extension, right? Where you basically during these three kicks
Yeah.
input R2 or something to do the final extension.
Right.
But if it was optional, imagine if you
Yeah.
could like
Yeah.
drop that on purpose
Mhm.
and then your character would just kind of like float down for a second
Exactly. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then maybe like you could do something else like that that has like a bunch of advantage or whatever. But it's literally just like kind of just like pure imagination by me. Like there's probably
Well,
no
right,
something you could
yeah,
do
yeah.
cool with it,
But
right?
that's what we're here for, dude. You know,
Yeah.
it's all about the speculation, dude. Who cares if we end up being wrong? It's just it's awesome to explore all of this and just the potential and to talk about it, you know, in the meantime.
Yeah, like
Oh, man.
I'm still like I'm expecting to have a lot of fun with just like the fresh value of it and just
Yeah, yeah.
seeing them a little less like unchained in terms of just like what they're willing to do in terms of like wild
Dude,
ass
right.
roars and content and weapons and
Yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah.
But I am definitely not expecting them to kind of like suddenly cook something competitively interesting or like
Yeah.
something
I mean, and here
just balanced in
yeah.
a casual sense even. Yeah.
Right, yeah, you know, and it's like it's so difficult with this too because it's like we don't know what the game's gonna look like after the DLC pre-patch too, you know, which
Hmm.
is undoubtedly going to have an insane amount of just baseline balance adjustments, you know, to even stuff
Yeah.
in the base game too. So,
Yeah, right. Like
hmm,
it's hard to really compare this stuff even conceptually when you
yeah,
don't kind of know if they're gonna like nerf dual spears or they're not gonna nerf dual
yeah,
spears.
exactly, exactly. Like, what does the game look like right before this drops, you know? So,
Yeah.
also, Darcy Scout, thank you. I'm really glad you appreciate the quote nerdy stream like this, dude. That's what it's all about. Let's do it.
Hmm.
But yeah, dude.
Um.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's cool. Now I just hope there's not like a immediate fucking you know problem child situation where we have like a colossal sword like wave dash or maybe the great katana has a crouch R1 that
Oh
pokes
yeah,
and
uh-huh. Well, that's the thing too. There's undoubtedly going to be extremely broken shit and interactions. Like maybe even we might even see the return of an infinite combo, you know, with the release of this DLC. We don't know, you know. And
Mhm,
historically,
mhm.
you look back at the previous games, you know, every base game release was broken to all shit, just like ER was, and this DLC is going to be no exception. So it's just
Yeah.
be prepared for those things, but From Software is clearly committed to the support as well. So, and
Mhm.
plus, this is something that I mentioned yesterday. It's like the more broken things are at launch of the DLC, it's like that's more time that From Software feels committed to actually support too. So I mean that's a big deal. You got to look at it through that perspective as well.
Hmm.
Also, oh yeah, go
What's
on.
scholar? We almost said scholar.
Insane.
Um, Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yeah.
What
Hey,
were you
you
gonna
know,
say, sorry?
it is Bone Fist esque, so I don't blame you for bringing up Scholar. It makes
Yeah,
sense. It
and
makes sense.
the fucking like great katana, you know, the alone sword or whatever, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the
yeah.
fucking great sword,
Yeah,
straight
the Lois,
sword
dude. Yeah, the
hybrid.
Lois Greatsword. Like, they're taking so much inspiration from DS2, dude. The Light Greatsword is literally an homage to the Lois in every way, shape, and form. And also, I mentioned
Mhm.
this yesterday on stream too, where it's like From has always gotten so much shit from so many people about how they did their greatsword animations because it's not like historically accurate at all to like how they were wielded back in, you know, like the medieval days, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
all of the techniques were all, it looked like a light greatsword, you know, in the DLC straight up. So
Hmm.
they're like, "Oh yeah, dude. We're actually going to do it for once, dude."
You
So
know,
that's really cool.
they may not even include a attack where they swing it into the ground.
Yeah, dude. I hope
Just,
not. Dude,
just like,
I'm really interested to see, like, I know we didn't get to see it in the gameplay, but I'm really interested to see what the one-handed moveset of the light greatsword is gonna look like. Because like
me too.
that with like light greatswords with sword and board, dude. Sword and board might actually be back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, we'll see. Like, especially with that length and with that apparent speed, because like, look at this moveset.
Yeah.
This is potentially pretty crazy. Like, again, depends on the context of everything else around it in the time of the game, and also like just other properties that we can't see, like the hitbox and
Mm-hmm.
blending, or whatever. But like, just where's this? I think it was after the leap pack at the beginning. Like this right here
Mm-hmm.
is fucking I think I-15, which is 1 frame slower than two-hand TSR1. And it has like a very similar animation, right? So
Wow.
like this looks like definitely a very like fucking potential meta
Yeah,
thing,
oh
right?
dude, like undoubtedly the light greatsword, like, yeah, like without a doubt the light greatsword is going to be insanely good.
There could be
Yeah, that
something there
poke
to
is
like change, but
insane. That poke
I
is
feel like
actually
even if it
crazy.
isn't immediately good due to like some other broken shit,
Well,
I
right,
feel like
yeah.
with balance patches, it's
Yes.
more than likely not to be like
Yeah.
pretty good.
Well,
It's
just
not
based
broken.
on the stance system alone that it has, dude, like it's god tier. And the way that it like seamlessly flows back into the stance when you use a stance attack too. Like the mix-ups are insane with it.
Hear me out though.
Hmm.
You're gonna need to show me that
Oh,
because
okay.
I need to like from what I've seen so far, there's like only a couple interactions I'm aware of. Okay, so like for example, here this is the guard counter,
Yep.
and from what
It's
Yubi said,
yeah,
this
it's
looks to be a two swing, like it's a two
yep.
swing from the
Yep.
guard counter.
Hmm. Yep.
But then if you do an R1 input,
Right there. Yep. That turnaround is the R1 press. Yep.
which with the time it takes to come out, looks like it may be like the final R1 of an R1 chain, right?
Potentially, yeah.
Which with its speed, like it definitely looks like it's telling you to like, you know, get out that person's face, right? And you don't want to get hit by it.
Yeah.
But like it I don't know if they have like any sort of crazy mix-ups or anything from there. So while it looks like really fun and like definitely will like possibly, I think almost if nothing else, this weapon will be one of the best like noob tube, like noob, like stomper things in the game, like or like it's gonna be kind of like Rivers of Blood, where someone with zero experience with the game can kind of pick it up, just press the buttons, and like it's gonna give other people new to the game difficulties, you know?
Oh yes, yeah, yeah, for sure. It's definitely a relatively noob-friendly weapon for sure. But one thing that I did want to mention is that if they like within the baseline moveset, even if one input, if that's like a reoccurring theme that we see with like the guard counter, for example, you know, where one input is actually two attacks. If that's like a prevalent theme within the baseline moveset overall, that's a kind of equalizer and balancing factor for the weapon too. And I really like that. I really like the design that From Software is taking with a lot of these DLC based weapons, especially the new weapon types, because they all seem to have very significant trade-offs to them too, you know?
Yeah, which may make it probably a bit less like overwhelming in terms of like how to learn how to play against these things, because I feel like um one thing I definitely have a thought on, but probably won't do, just like a lot of other things I'd like to do, would be after the DLC comes out and I
Yeah.
like lab these things with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of friends and stuff,
Yeah.
is if I immediately see that people are calling things like overpowered or like unavoidable, or see people getting fucked by them, it would be really cool to just do a video that just is basically after labbing these things for a while, just
Yes.
showing you how to like avoid or play around the
Mm-hmm.
very gimmicky stuff,
I
right?
completely agree. I think that's a
I
great idea. Yeah.
I think that would, probably help the discussion a bit
Yes,
more on the
yeah,
game, right?
very, very much so. Because yes, like at face value, these things are going to seem just so egregious to the point where people are just going to get upset about them and then
Mhm.
not look any deeper and then just be like, "Fuck this, I'm out," you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Or
and
it
we
might
definitely
get
don't
like
want that, right?
I feel like these things, like I think it's fine
Mm-hmm.
to maybe not like have like like nude poops, or want to like just generally kind of keep things sort of down, because like again, I don't know, there's different like viewpoints on that, but I'm kind of like conflicted. I definitely have more of a bias on like the competitive depth side, despite
Oh
being
yeah.
like more aware than like anybody about
Mm-hmm.
like just how many things are kind of like keeping this thing from having that, right, and it's making that unpractical with the other interests of the game, like an RPG, like making a good RPG and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I still kind of have that interest where like I think it's worth keeping around different things which have like skill skill curves to them, and that reward people for being mechanical and in like understanding them technically and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like with things like this, I think it's fine if you wanted to make them maybe not as like easily like just seemingly broken at like
Mm-hmm.
the lowest
Right.
like choose play or lowest knowledge of play.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'd prefer to that is if it was locked behind mechanical things. But the difficulty with that again is, since it's an RPG
Yeah.
game, they want
Mm-hmm.
to make it so people can like feel powerful by just
Yeah.
like pressing buttons, right? They don't want
Exactly.
like,
Right.
yeah. So it's
Well, that's the other part of it too, right? With like a lot of these weapons, especially the brand new weapon types that we've seen thus far. It's like are these like all of the a lot of what we've seen thus far is very like flashy, you know what I mean? And stuff like
Mhm.
that. So like how practical are these things actually going to be in a PvE setting, especially with how like insane the enemy design that we've heard thus far and how that's going to shape up to be, right? Like are these weapon types going to be able to even keep up with that? I don't know. It
Mhm.
seems to me like they will be able to, and that's why they're going so crazy with them. But at the same time, especially looking at the light greatsword, for example, it's like if it's like locking you into these animations for
Mhm.
quite a while, it's like are you just gonna get absolutely
Yeah.
destroyed? Like I
You, you know what? It was pretty interesting because I think Yui was pretty right in their observation, or kind of like, yeah, had a good idea with their perspective
Mhm.
of like, even if it is from like a more PvE like POV,
Yeah.
they're kind of right in that generally the like power stance movesets that um
Oh
attack
yeah, attacks.
synchronously
Yes, right.
um and are like what is it usually better, and thus
Mm-hmm.
these ones might not be as good as you might wish,
Right.
because but like the thing about that is not necessarily the attacking synchronously thing, because like obviously fists are fucking demonic and they have a lot of desynchronous attacks, but it's more of the like commitment in the absolute sense when you press a button, right? Because especially the bosses in these games are not really interactive on like the stun element, right? Like you are kind of most of the time like hitting them and rolling, hitting them and rolling, or hitting them and moving out of the way, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And if you have something like the halberd power stance moveset, or you're just like kind of like doing the two big swings and you're kind of a sitting duck for a while, like it doesn't matter how big and cool the swing is, like the
Yes.
boss is not getting staggered, so you're kind of
Yeah.
fucked. So it's way
Yeah.
better to just have like paired straight swords where you can like kind of swing a lot more
Yeah.
freely.
Mm-hmm.
So you are right in that the more committal things seem like that they actually may pose some difficulty for players in
Mm-hmm.
order like it won't be as abusable as it may look on paper, because if they commit to like say this attack right when on that one it was right here,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
and especially if they queue the R1, then if
Exactly.
they're fighting a boss, they're gonna get fucked. They're gonna get fucking
Uh-huh.
smoosh.
Yeah, dude, exactly.
I,
1 second before we move on, I want to catch up with chat a little bit. Quisao says, every weapon shown so far seems to be a huge knowledge check for an opponent, dangerously non-noob friendly. Very interesting. And that's semi-fair, as we discussed before. Scout said, I want Aquamarine daggers so bad, I'm using it right now in DS3. Also, from Ouroboros' video, we know because he mentioned that one of the enemies that he fought wielded a dagger that was very similar to the Aquamarine dagger functionality from DS3. And
oh,
also,
oh.
Ouroboros mentioned that that enemy was also Sekiro parrying him as well. So take
Hmm.
that. So I don't know exactly what that means, but we're getting something akin to the Aquamarine dagger in the DLC, which is extremely fucking hype.
I'm really hoping, because like seeing these like what looks to be like stance transition attacks like
Mm-hmm.
this,
Yep.
um, like just makes me very excited, because I was like kind of disappointed a little when Elden Ring came out and all the stances like weapon arts were kind of like one
I
shot
I know,
attacks
I know.
that just do one move and maybe
Yes.
like some follow-ups if you mash the button,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of having like
Yeah, like
and it doesn't
transformative,
yeah where like
Yeah.
it depends on the context, it should, right? But it's always the same move no matter where you use it. But like Aquamarine was so fun to use and so like innovative, and was actually um like decent, because and like had true mix-ups and stuff, because once you hit them, like normally you would have to go into the stance and it would have like a delay, and thus like the opponent would just be away from you by then. But if you actually like hit someone and go into the stance, then suddenly you get
Mm-hmm.
access to all that. So it's just like so much like just fun there, right?
Yes. Yeah, without a doubt, dude.
And we've only seen like what, like fucking 8
Well,
weapons in this.
yes, I'm glad you brought this up too, because literally, From Software, they're always reserved with the things that they show in their promotional material, typically, right? If you go back historically to what they've done with the DLC trailers for the previous games, and it's like they're showing us this, which is absolutely blowing our minds, right? And we have to expect, and based off what they've done before, that this is just the tip of the iceberg, dude. And that is insane to think about. Also, Magnificent says, did you see that the javelin, throwing axe, and throwing hammer aren't actually a part of the throwing weapon type, but weapons from their normal respective classes with a thrown are too? I did not catch that, Magnificent. That is extremely fucking fascinating.
I actually assumed it would be that way. I like, like it is pretty easy to just, have like a R2 that like kind of, because I feel like they've done this somewhere else. I'm struggling to think about it, but I feel like I've seen maybe it's like a Bloodborne moveset or something, but all you need to do is kind of just like have a different bone on the character almost
Yeah.
that kind of be dislocated, and then you have the weapon just kind of like fly over like that.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
right. That makes sense. Well, I know
um,
they messed
or
around with
actually,
that
just
in Bloodborne with the Simon's Bowblade too, because that had range-based R2s. So maybe they're using a very similar framework there, right?
oh wait. What I was thinking is a more connected thing. This might be different in the sense that like the followers javelin, where it actually like as it
Yeah.
despawns the model, it creates a projectile. But um, yeah, it's kind of like fine either way. I feel like the oh, I know what I'm thinking of. I was thinking of the um what was it? The staff with the funny spinning weapon thingy, or spinning weapon in general.
In Elden
Uh,
Ring specifically?
yeah,
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
it, Regal carrying
Yeah,
Regal scepter.
yeah, yep. Renala's weapon, yep.
Yeah, I think these are more projectile based, but
For
like
sure.
disconnect. But yeah.
Hmm.
Um. So, what else did I want to like look at here? Yeah, I think with what we were talking about,
Hmm.
like the more committal stuff, I think Yui even brought up during like this fight when they showed the Crucible
Oh, the
wing,
wing, Ash of War, yeah.
that like this is like so committal,
Yes, it
and
is,
in this
extremely.
clip, it almost looks like it was curated and like to try and get this clip to happen, right?
Yeah,
Where like they actually get all this and they don't get hit, right?
right, yeah, exactly.
Which
Well,
makes me wonder
yeah, go for it,
if
yep.
like maybe they're gonna just give it like a bunch of damage negation and make the damage so good that it is worth it. And I'm pretty sure they said this has infinite hyper armor.
Oh,
So
jeez.
either they're gonna do that,
Hmm.
or maybe it is more balanced, but it might end up being a thing where it is more setup oriented, where players need to specifically plan and kind of
Hmm.
experiment where they can use this, right?
Yeah, well,
And
it very much seems akin to, like, Melania's Ash, you know what I mean, in terms of structure overall. Also, this, from what UI said, this has, like, zero tracking, too, because you notice he just goes straight forward, and then it takes a really
oh,
long time for him to actually recover, too. He mentioned that it had really high recovery to it, so it's, yeah.
yeah, that it's certainly going to be like a PVE only,
Yes,
maybe practical weapon.
right.
It may actually just be like,
But you could
something
you could
that's
hit
cool.
somebody with the who does that in PvP and definitely catch them on, like, a panic back roll or something. That'd be really
Yep,
funny. Oh man. But
certainly.
no, like, going back to what Magnificent said with, like, the javelin and the throwing axe not being technically a part of the pure throwing type weapon, right? Because that's very interesting to me, because, like, so is it just reserved for the thrown daggers then, or are they gonna add, like, like dual hatchets that are purely thrown too, or something like that? You know what I mean? Because it's like it feels weird for them to create that entire, like, weapon type if it's just for
Um,
the daggers. I mean, granted, they could have, like, 3 or 4 unique daggers part of that purely thrown
did they
type, but
mention? Did they mention what the actual description was in game for like the throwing daggers as?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Just
Mm,
based on, like, the articles and stuff that I've read, though, everybody said that they were all part of the same. So Magnificent, let me know where you're getting that information from specifically too. I'd be
like I
keen
can
to know.
believe it's all of them are of the same class. It's just like based off like what they said with the javelin and the axe, like that looks
Yeah.
like more of like an R2 like special thing, not the base move set for the most part. Actually,
Right.
well, there's some jumping R2, but like if you're doing it on the L1s as well, then that looks like
Yeah.
almost like an entire new class. But you don't
Mhm.
necessarily need to do it that way, right? It can
Yeah,
just
yeah.
be throwing version of the moveset element.
Agreed, yeah. And somebody mentioned too that, like, if for, like, the throwing axe, the throwing great hammer, and the javelin specifically, if it is only tied to, like, the R2 button, then that means, unfortunately, that you're not going to be able to throw it if you equip it in your offhand. If that is the case, if that's how it functions. Which, that's, once again, god fucking damn it, FromSoft. Like, don't fucking add power stancing and just add main hand offhand functionality like they had in DS2. I would have vastly preferred them to do that
Mhm.
instead of just adding power stancing, honestly. Because
Yeah.
man, there's so much more variety in that, you know.
Also, what is it? Looking forward to seeing this in 2v2s.
Yeah, right, dude. If it has that stasis effect in PvP too, that's like ridiculous. It's like it's TWAP on steroids, dude. Tranquil Walker
Mm-hmm.
Peace. Like holy shit.
Oh wait, status effect? Is it slowing them down too?
Well, it roots them in place every time it pulses like that. You see that?
Oh no, there's no way.
Uh-huh.
There's no way
Yeah.
it's gonna do that with players, right? Right?
Yeah, uh-huh. I don't know, dude. They're going pretty wacky with the designs in this. I
Yeah.
wouldn't put it past them.
I'm feeling like this has. Well, there's a very good chance this is even useless in PvP due to some technicality, or in 2v2s. It
Mhm.
could. I think there's a very good chance, maybe even more likely, that it needs to be banned or something because it ends up
Yeah,
being.
yeah, probably, yeah. But just
Oh
from
my
the
god.
the spells and incantations that we've seen thus far, they all look really, really interesting in terms of functionality.
Hmm. I'm a bit more pessimistic of what I've seen so far, aside from that, obviously,
I
because of
like I like this one in this shot that we see here, the glintstone nail or whatever,
Mhm.
because it's like if that like what those are aimed at right there, I feel like the way that this spell functions is that the reason why it's stopping like that every so often is because every single time it stops, it's going to auto update the tracking and change its direction. I feel
That
like
is
that's
actually
how
cool.
it
I didn't
functions.
notice that till
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Hmm.
And it's like
I wonder how that would work with a more mobile opponent rolling
right.
around it and stuff.
Yeah. Because
And
it's like they completely stop, and then if it does auto update the tracking and completely reposition, that's insanely good.
Mhm.
So,
It could be, but like think about like how magic spells are like right now with a little bit of poise damage, and like the fact with how much you're committing with like the cast animation there.
yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like in a 1v1 it might. It's I feel like it's more likely to be useless, especially with like I think actually lat kind of affects like projectiles in the worst way. Like I feel like they're so like lat really screws up projectiles ability to be effective because of how like roll items work.
Of course, yeah, yeah, for sure. But like,
Um
yeah, and that's all the, nuance with in relation to PvP, all of these other exterior factors come into play. But it's like if that is the overall design functionality, like that's a good idea, you know what I mean? At the very least. But if it doesn't end up working, then it's a fucking shame based on the all the
yeah.
problems with the engine and the netcode,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe it could be good like at the very least with how it like stops. Like it looks very inducing
Oh,
from
for
the
sure.
receiving end.
Yeah.
So like I feel like at least there's like a good chance that it might be okay in like 2v2 fights.
Mm-hmm.
Um Especially maybe like I don't know. Dead maps actually seem to have a lot of cover, so maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. It's cool regardless how it works.
Yeah, completely agree. Scout says, y'all are giving me hope for Aquamarine Dagger. We need more trick weapons like it. I completely agree, dude. And honestly, with the wild shit that we've seen thus far, it's like a full baseline trick weapon doesn't seem outside the realm of possibility, which is just crazy to say. I did not think that they would go this crazy with designs, especially just in the DLC for ER. But, and here's the thing, right? Like, obviously in every single game's respective DLC, that's where all of the more wild designs and experimentation comes from, because they're subsequently working on their follow-up title, right? So if you translate what we're seeing here with all of this wild and crazy shit, like what the hell is From Software's next game gonna look like, dude? The combat in their subsequent
Okay,
title is gonna be
can I say
insane.
something here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, like I am not aware of how like I guess how much credit is like what's the word for like a rumor that has like value or not?
Validity.
Validity,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't know how valid it looks, but like with the rumors of that other FromSoft game with like the magic
Oh yeah.
movesets and stuff,
Yeah. I don't know how
that may
true that is,
be
but yeah.
if that is true,
Agreed.
it would kind of line up with the fact that like we have like the perfume movesets, throwing dagger movesets, and all these
Mm-hmm.
things
Mm-hmm.
where
Yep.
they're turning things which normally would be like consumables, like just kind of one off things that aren't really interactive. They're kind of like just like or really like dynamic. It's just like one action, like a spell or a. It seems like they're leaning into like maybe kind of turning these things into entire move sets of themselves, and that would line up with what was alleged to be in that game. It's just
Yeah,
like
agreed.
spells kind of like turn into entire move sets of
Movesets,
weapons.
yes, exactly. Completely agree with you there. And I really hope that Spellbound is like a potentiality. If that is what they're working on next, and I've said this multiple times, but like From Software has always incrementally throughout all of their titles been trying to make magic feel more and more like its own thing, you know? And when I say magic, I mean both sorceries and incantations. And they still, even in Elden Ring, like they still feel very like tacked on, not something that you can really fully dive into because what? I mean, fuck, dude. You only have like Carrion Slicer and Catch Flame that have like augmented based discrepancies in their moveset, right? That you can actually change. And they did a really good job with allowing you to do like jump casts, running casts, and rolling casts, right? And all of that. And they started playing around with that in DS3, of course, right? And they did the same kind of thing with the bow functionality too. But just translating that into their next game, it's like, well, I guess before I say that, I should go into. I remember following the pre-release leaks from like the network test and stuff when everybody was data mining that. Like, I remember seeing the Renala's full moon animation, but of course we didn't know what it was at that time. But the fact that you just start levitating and just like phase up and become the moon itself, and then the moon shoots out. Like, come on, that's something that we've never seen, in any of the previous games, and that absolutely blew my mind. Same thing with like the dragon, like incantations where you use the dragon hand, you start levitating and just slam it down, right? It leads more credence towards Spellbound potentially becoming a real possibility too, because they're constantly innovating upon those core magic and casting based systems. So it seems like the natural evolution as to something that they would want to fully explore and see how far they can actually take something like that too.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I think that's I think that's very likely. But also earlier I think I was asking you
yeah,
about the stance movesets here.
yeah.
You're saying like they go like seamlessly, but I'm pretty sure I've only seen them do the stance from this neutral like entrance via like L2. That looks to be.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is after they do this attack, they're holding it again immediately, and then they do another one. So that's
Wait a
what I mean
minute.
by that. Yes.
Wait. Did I miss that?
They're holding it. They're doing the exact same
It,
attack again. Yeah.
it is.
It seamlessly transitions back into the stance. Yeah. It's fucking insane, dude.
Okay, wait. Let me see something. Okay, so that last one looks kind of like Damage Level 2, although that may be PvE exclusive. But like, let's say you just get like hit here,
Mhm.
right? Like right about here.
Yep.
Then how fast is like they may have not immediately queued it as
Right.
fast as
As fast as
possible.
possible. They may not have buffered it. Yeah. But it is holding that stance again. It's not taking you out of it like something like Square Off, for example, does. You know what I mean? Where you actually have to re-enter it manually again.
Hmm. Wait, but then like actually thinking about that there, so if you got stunned right there, then you would roll out at about this is 66, right? So 25 times 2, that's about 16 frames back. So wait, sorry, doing a bit of math
No, it's
here.
all good. I'll just catch up on chat while you do that.
Mhm.
All right. Let's see. That's my guess. The scriptwriter, whatever weapons are just normal spears, axes, great hammers, but with projectiles on R2s and JR2s. Like I'm completely fine with that principle. I think that's really really cool and adds, some really cool like nuance and mix-up potential and things like that for those specific weapons with those augmented R2s, and I think that's fucking awesome. And once again, that just leads more credence towards them going back and the additions that they are making to the pre-established weapon types. They can effectively change those into something that feels like a brand new weapon type in general, even the ones that they're putting back into things that already exist, right? It's very, very, and I use this example a lot, but it's very similar to like what they did with the Zamor curved sword, for example, right? That is a CGS. It's part of the CGS weapon type, but it has an entirely unique R1 chain for both one and two-handed, right? Which makes it feel like something entirely different. So I think they're going to do a shit ton of that going into the DLC proper. What else here?
Um, user. Oh, there's a bot you might want to
Yeah, I
ban.
banned that, dude. Yeah, I'm just catching up on chat here, dude. We're getting it, dude.
I'll give you a
Um,
second.
Stance into stance, baby. Let's go. Reminds me of Aquamarine. Yes, Aquamarine is actually a great example of that, right? Because it always did. It went back into its baseline hold, right? So this is actually really similar. So they're kind of using that framework that they built from DS3 and bringing it forth and using it in new and innovative ways, which once again is From Software's iterative design philosophy, and that's what they've always done. That's why they're able to take a 15-year-old engine and do what we're seeing right here in Elden Ring to this day, you know? So dope, so true, magnificent. The light greatswords will likely also get the yeah, the ability to infuse square off. That would be insane, dude. Obviously, that would be like a strict downgrade based on square off's functionality right now. But once again, we don't know what the hell's coming in the DLC pre-patch, dude. Because like, if they've been working on designing all of this shit, dude, this entire time, you know, that points to me that they're going to go back through and like touch up a lot of the things that don't have similar functionalities that exist within the base game already. So the pre-patch is going to be wild too in terms of what they change and what they add,
Wait.
right? Um Power stance spears with extra projectiles, X fucking D, dude. Power stance javelins, dude, with a throwable R2. Crazy. Let's go.
Okay, you want to look here. So this is actually really interesting. How this interacts.
Hmm.
So assuming this is damage level 2, like see the PVE got hit here. The if this was a player, they would be able to act about. Wait. Did I do this right? Like, oh, that's 50 for yeah. So they would be able to act right here. They would be able to act right here. And
Hmm.
already we've gone into the
Yeah.
R1 again,
Yeah, you're
right?
already going, yeah.
So at least in terms of the stance user has advantage here, right?
Yeah.
And the other player is kind of just forced to rule. But what is kind of concerning here is that, or that makes me think that this is kind of, kind of a dead end for the aggression is this is like the startup of this is like very like reactable. Like you see that you can just hold back while like sprinting or whatever, see
Hmm.
this coming out, and then
Yep.
get out of the range of all these follow-ups. I'd assume, right?
Right.
Um
But once again, you got to take into account the R2 as well, you know what I mean? And that has a
yeah,
huge forward lunge, and especially if they decide to like attack out of hit stun there, something like that, because if this is type 1 hit stun, you know, based on the current system that we have, if FromSoft doesn't change the out of hit stun into attack recovery, right, being as low as it is, like even then you could potentially do the L2 R2, which brings you up into the air to potentially dodge the incoming attack and then punish
yeah.
too, which is
I
crazy.
was thinking it would be
Yeah,
pretty fucking crazy too. Just
right?
fucking send them flying. But like
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this. Do you think that
mhm.
this is going to be an Ash of War, this stance that you're going to be able to apply to like a straight sword too, for example? Or do you think that this is just a locked Ash for the Milady weapon that we're seeing?
I wish they had mentioned that people have
Yeah,
played it.
same.
Maybe we're gonna like ask them or something. But
That would be sick
I
if this
feel
is just applicable to different weapon types.
I feel it would be sick, and it would potentially mean that they also have different frame data. So if it's not like viable or like as interesting here, then it could work differently on the other ones. But one thing I will say
Yeah.
is like I wish with like see this like the whole kind of concept of stance transitions out of attacks is kind of that you can have even slower moves have like utility by like kind of restricting your move set that's like able to immediately cancel out to some like limited options, right? But those options have like their own strengths, and thus like it doesn't let you just like return to neutral and with like extreme advantage and do whatever you want, but
Mm-hmm.
it gives you those options there. But what would be cool is I'm gonna guess here though that like the stance does not cancel out really fast into non-stance, um, which I feel like would limit the kind of mix-up potential here. Because imagine if like if you hit this and either you choose not to transition to the stance by not holding L2 and you
Yeah.
just recover from it, and
Mm-hmm.
imagine the timing with that is good enough that you could just do like an R1 or go to like a crouch R1 or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
um or whatever. um or maybe it does automatically go into the stance, but you can cancel it with something kind of like the frayed blade or something, but it doesn't look like it cancels like automatically fast, just which is consistent with what they've kind of done in Elden Ring, which is making the stances like very kind of like, you know, high commit. Like you're kind of like committing to going into them. You can't really like, you know, mix it up with other stuff really nice. It's kind of
Yeah,
like you're just committing to your one
yeah.
or two moves.
One thing that I would say to that though is like, once again, this is very similar in functionality to something like the Aquamarine Dagger, and the Aquamarine Dagger didn't play by the same rules that by the stance system that we have in ER, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
very, very quick to transition back to the baseline moveset. And with everything that we're seeing with the Light Greatsword being so seamless in transition, where you like almost can't discern whether or not the next input is being pressed, I would lean more on the side of it actually having that functionality, honestly.
I'd really hope. I'd really hope because this has like a lot of like potential. Because if you
It
could
really
give
does.
the player a reason to not like immediately like choose to just I guess like run and like reactively respond to this. And if they were kind of like stuck in this situation where they're like up close like this, then there's even like situational like frame trap potential here. Like it doesn't look like this.
Yes.
It looks like the swings are actually like too fast between each other
Yeah, that's
to
incredibly fast.
to frame trap, but it would be like a kind of like neat hit. So like again, this is going to be definitely like very effective against and used by noobs because
Yes.
like they're not going to know the roll timing to go
Mm-hmm.
through this with one roll, right?
Right.
But um, but then I was thinking like maybe if you see this arc, assuming this arc is not like entirely cosmetic and the hitbox
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
starts back here.
dude. Oh my god. The early hits with that. Jesus Christ.
Like I feel like if I like especially if it got someone like in a corner or something,
Oh
or like even
no,
like imagine
dude.
like this is a player. Imagine this is a player,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like technically they have a lot of space to go back,
Yeah.
but maybe they just want to like run away from you, so they want to like move or roll left, right? And they think that's sufficient enough. But what if you just like aimed it to the
Yeah.
left of it,
Yep. Yep.
got
Yep.
like this little early hit here,
Mm-hmm.
got them to roll early, and
Right.
then basically tried to early hit with like this or
Mm-hmm.
something, maybe. Or
Yes.
actually maybe it would still be too fast, and thus you would late hit with it
Yeah.
instead after like comes down
Well,
like this.
yeah, and here's the other part of that too. It's like if they do roll the first hit, maybe the third hit catches them. If the second one's too fast too, it catches the
Yeah,
like their second subsequent roll or something like that.
yeah, you really need to like really put this kind of like in a timeline and then just like kind of simulate it, like see, okay, in this situation they're kind of forced to roll then, but then that causes them like down the line to like only be able to roll then versus this, and then they
Mm-hmm.
get screwed or whatever. But there's also
Oh,
like a lot of possibly limiting factors here. Like look how it also like obviously it's like a diagonal, right?
yeah, it's like
And
upward
the
and to
hit,
the left, yeah, slightly.
the hitbox could be not as wide, and also since we're pushing into the enemy like this, we're not
Mm-hmm.
seeing the full scale of the forward momentum.
Agreed, agreed,
And
yes.
we're not seeing the tracking too, because like
Yes,
you remember
exactly.
the idea I said before?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm imagining like it may be more likely that like your tracking is kind of like slowly dragging it to the left instead of like a quick like flick or turn or something. You might not have as much control as you need to kind of like pull off these kinds of things or whatever.
Potentially, yeah. One thing that Scout pointed out in chat, Aquamarine Dagger in DS3, the L2 R2 actually has an immediate hitbox on the right-hand side of the startup, and you can unlock to early hit it. So that, and once again, with the similarities between the augmented movesets here that we're seeing with the stance-based kind of transformative moveset, I don't know, that's another additive factor towards maybe being able to actually early hit it, that the hitbox does start that early on the right-hand side. So, like, my god, dude. Just the potential
Yeah.
of this stance-based Ash of War alone. And that's not even talking about if, well, here's the other thing. What do you think about the this stance-based Ash of War being a recovery cancel for the base moveset? Like
I
if you're
think
able to
that would
recovery
be.
cancel into it.
No, I think that would be good and kind of like the, the best kind of way. Like I
Yeah,
feel
and
like
I think that's how it's functioning, honestly, genuinely.
here, let's look at
I
the
don't know if we see
sure.
them directly transition into that after like buffered or not, because they always just go into it
Go
immediately
into it
after.
directly or
Yeah,
loop it from the
yeah.
use.
But honestly,
What?
well, here's the other thing too. Like I want to point out wild strikes and spinning strikes. Those, granted, those are like neutral like hits that just queue up when you hold down R2, but even so, that has a significant recovery cancel associated with it too, and that is technically a stance-based state as well.
Hmm.
So once
Yeah,
again, more credence towards that potentially being the case with the LGS.
yeah. If you could cancel into this really fast from
God, that
an
would be
attack,
so. Oh,
could you imagine I could imagine like even if these moves are relatively slow in the initial startup, like obviously the flurry is
yeah,
fucking crazy fast as fuck
yeah.
when you actually get into it, but
Mm-hmm.
the getting into it part is like the part that like kind of concerns me, but it might actually work for it in a way, like if depending on how it
That's a good point
that
too. Yeah, I know
like
exactly what you mean. Yep.
look at it like at this. Like let's say you hit them with the R1 or whatever back here, and then you immediately do this, and let's say it cancels really fast. So you actually have, let's say, the priority to get into this, and if they mash, then they just like eat shit, right? So they need to like move back and like reactively respond, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then from there, you can basically maybe even demand like kind of respect through there, and then you could cancel it and just run up to them and then do your other normal attacks, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's like really cool. It's
It
kind of just like
is.
you hit them and then you run up and you're like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
dude,
fucking kidding me?
exactly. Yeah, it puts them into a mind game scenario, dude, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what so many players love, you know, like Vortex players especially, obviously. But
yeah. And
this is a healthy Vortex too, which I think is really cool, you know.
it's not even a vortex. It's more like
Technically not, but it's similar. You see what I mean?
it's a loop. It can be a looping situation, right?
Yeah.
Like right, like let's say they do mash, and then you get them there
Mm-hmm.
again, and they get them there again, right?
Yep.
And then
Mm-hmm. Well, and
you know,
what's really cool about this too is that both the R1, the L2 R1, and the L2 R2 are so different, and they cover each other's weaknesses. That, oh, I'm gonna queue up the Ash, they're gonna panic roll, and then I do an L2 R2 instead because they're panic rolling the, you know, like early hit timing of the L2 R1, for example. You know, like
mhm.
that's insane. That's so cool.
even even early hit time though, I feel like that can be reactively responded to. But like I
Potentially,
feel like
right? Yeah. Yeah.
but I do feel that that definitely is going to hit a lot
Yeah.
until like players start getting
Oh, for
better at
sure.
the very least. And let me actually just think of this. Like let me just like look at this move. I just want to like see the properties of this.
Yeah, for sure.
Boop. Okay, and then how fast do we get up? Like I feel like the jump frames like there's it's a pretty like by this time we're in the air, so that the like the lower body might actually be turned off by this point, like only in 13 frames, right? Or yeah, that's 13 frames. Yeah. Um, so that actually might beat out some attacks. The body does look like a bit low, so maybe it might take a little more. But this may actually, and depending on the line and everything, like dodge certain things, certain options. And then how long does this take after you actually like get up to like, whoa, it looks like the hitbox like may start like very soon, but like as you go down, it probably depends on how close. Oh, there's a spark. So like right here about like 37. That's like, oh, that's like I 18, 19. So like that's not bad.
No, it's
Not bad.
quite
That's like
fast.
I feel like, oh, but we're not including this. That's more like 50, so there's more like 25. So I feel like it still can catch a roll, but it needs to catch the player on like a like them rolling because like of a read or something, right?
Yeah.
So you catch them being like, okay, there's this thing coming. I'm guessing it's gonna come at the time, and the timing that you do this thing happens to come with it, but it's also locked behind the stand, so mm,
It's so hard to tell.
yeah.
But once again, if you can recovery cancel, like, what kind of hit stun do you think this thing has? Do you think it's type 1 hit stun on its base moveset, or do you think it's type 2? There's no way this thing has type 2 hit stun, right?
Yeah, there's
Like,
no way that
maybe
it
on
can be
R2s, but not on the
R1.
R1 attacks, you know?
Like let me just like look at this. Like this is like TSR1 like basically, right? So there's no way it could. And if
Yeah,
we look at
no.
compare the where are you? Right here? Yeah. Wait, no, you're right. Wait, I thought I cut it here. I think it's wait a minute. I think I judged it to be like right here. So let's say just between this and like this swing, like right here is where it hits his head right through the head. That's 44 frames, which is 22. And yeah, that would true combo if it was type 2. So I'd imagine this has to be type 1.
Yeah, yeah. There's no way it's type 2. Otherwise, I mean, that would be just... That would be a
Um,
Vortexer's wet dream if it was type 2 on the neutral R1s, dude. Oof.
yeah. Um, let's say they add 1.5 and it's actually a new type of hit stun that adds like a little in between and makes
Potentially.
yeah, I'm wishing too much.
Hey, that's what it's all about, dude. We're here for it.
um it's really actually funny to see like the play testers here or whoever's like recording this like
Yeah.
like being like, okay, I need to show the guard counter.
Yeah, I know, and then they get absolutely destroyed. Because they tried to do it, and that's why they got pancaked by the follow-up, too.
Yeah, because they don't know the
Yeah,
timing of the
yep,
freeze like on attacks and how it
yep.
works. So they're just like
Just eat shit, dude. That happens in the, against the fucking weird, like, woodchuck-looking enemies with the big clubs, too, when they're showing off the reverse grip sabers.
yeah.
Also,
Looks
those
pretty
look
good.
insanely good, dude. Those look so good. We definitely need to look at
Mm.
those later.
They're definitely like just aesthetically really pleasing to me, and
They
like I
are,
really want
yeah.
them to be good. But
Yes.
I need to like fucking look at them closer and scrutinize them or something.
Yeah.
Um, especially the design of that like fully charged versus like
Oh,
uncharged
I
attack.
know, dude.
Like look at
It's
that.
the forward momentum is insane, dude.
Here, let me see what do they show the uncharged or two somewhere here?
I don't know if they do. I know they show a jumping L1 or a jumping
Oh,
R1
I think
rather.
it's right here. Oh, that's the running
Yeah,
R2, which looks
running.
pretty good in
Well,
itself.
yeah, yeah. Which is
It's like
crazy fast for a running R2, dude. And we see the running R1 a little bit later too.
it looks like the power stance curve swords moveset,
But it's like
but
it's like way faster, it seems like. I don't know, like
mm,
way less obvious, I guess, because you like hold the curved swords by your like down by the floor, you know what I mean? It's like super telegraphed for the power stance curved sword running L1, but this one's a
starts
little bit
here.
less.
Okay. Um, yeah, it feels like there's more of a delay on
Mm-hmm.
the power stance curve swords one. I think that's like I 17 or something when
Mm,
the initial one, or maybe I 18.
gotcha.
But you see the hitboxes like actually start at the sides here. I
Yeah.
think you see the streak on
Mm-hmm. Yep.
normal weapon attacks that aren't weapon arts. Usually the streak lines up 100% with
With
when the hitbox
yeah,
comes
with the
out.
active frames. That's crazy quick, dude.
Yeah, so this is 27 frames and 60th, so divide by 2. That's 13.5. So I'm gonna guess
Wow.
that's like, yeah, that's like I-14 or I-15, something like that. And that's pretty good for a paired running attack, especially. That is like the side, so it may be like a early hit, you maybe have to be like point blank, but
Yeah.
that's pretty threatening because that hit exists, so they're gonna be rolling as if you're gonna get hit by this, and you
Uh-huh.
still have like the rest
Well,
of
yeah,
that
and
slash and
think
then the
about
follow-up.
the dude, the follow-up part of it is so fast. Jesus.
That actually might I mean, that's good if you want to like just finish it up, like output that damage.
Yeah.
But if you got a frame trap like that, that would be
Well,
even harder
right. Oh yeah,
because
I know. I agree. Yeah. I don't think that's
it,
gonna be. Well, maybe it would
no,
be
it's
frame.
only 18, which is like 9. So you could 9 and 30, and you have like 39 frames in 30 FPS on a
Hmm.
roll. So you
Okay.
can fully clear it, but you need to have good timing.
Oh.
Either that
Okay.
or you need to escape it spacing wise. But timing wise, it's fairly tight.
Okay.
But I don't think it can frame trap like
Right.
completely
Per
force
se.
the situation.
Also, if that's the ash on that, dude, we literally got like a better blind spot, DS3 Corvian
Mm,
style, dude.
I
It
feel
looks
like
so
this is
cool.
like cooler,
It is.
but in terms of good is like a different thing. Is
Functionality,
like
yeah, it's a
because
different story.
blind spot is like good, but not because of the like the dodging to the side thing or anything like
Yeah,
that. Or like
of course, yeah.
blind spot in DS3 is good because of its like obviously the shield chip thing is good in itself and not being
Mm-hmm.
parryable,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
but like the 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 thing that makes it really good is just the frame dot. It actually used to be worse, I'm pretty sure, and they buffed it at some
Yeah,
point.
they did buff it, yeah, yep.
So it ended up really complementing the Corvian moveset, right? But like
Yes.
here, like I want it to be good. But like let me look at this. Like how fast does this come out? Because I feel like with this big of a movement, it'd be slower, and because it comes from the side, I imagine it like it's much more prone to miss. Oh, though, look at that. Like this could be a weapon art making it look like it comes out early, but imagine the hitbox starts there and you happen to get it to
Yeah,
line up.
if that's the case, that's insane.
Yeah, if it starts there, then it's I-15, but then
Mm-hmm.
maybe more realistically, it would hit around like here, which is like, um,
Crown said it looks around the speed of impaling thrust.
that's like I-20,
Okay.
which I don't know if what's impaling thrust like. I can bring up Frame Data Explorer.
Mm-hmm.
What's the fastest version of impaling thrust? Would you happen to know?
I would just go with dagger. I mean,
Oh, it's I-20, it's I-23, so this would be faster.
really?
Like
Wow.
it would be faster even if it were to hit like here, right? Maybe like the
Yeah.
last. No, not even then. I think it would be like faster on like the last frame it could hit. That's only like 4 frames more, so that's like yeah, that would be like I-22. So just barely slower on the last possible hit. But
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing it's actually probably really meaty, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, just by the way that it looks like you're
Like
dragging the weapon up from the dirt, like from behind you. Like,
that would be like 5 whole frames of meatiness, right? It depends on how wide the hitbox is, though. Like Impaling Thrust has been really limited by the
yeah.
fact that it has like a pretty thin hitbox and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of weapon arts in DS3 were like better than their Elden Ring counterparts
Yep.
because yeah, they just weren't up to par and like hitbox width and
Yeah. Yeah.
tracking
Agreed.
and all that.
Agreed. Yep. Crowned also says definitely potential for free aim. I completely agree with this.
I hope. You know what'd be
Hoping.
fucking crazy
Oh yeah. What's up?
is if like at this point,
Mm-hmm.
like in the animation, you have full tracking when unlocked and could just like flick this around and
Oh.
hit somebody.
Oh, dude, that would be insane.
Yeah.
Yo, that's
You just
awesome to think
fucking
about.
imagine you just like sidestep someone's attack and you just come back around and just fucking yeah. It's definitely like
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this potentially having iframes? Because it doesn't look like it has iframes to me, personally. Just because
I
of the way the character's traveling around. Like, I mean,
I
other
think we
than like
should. I think
aesthetically, I don't know why they would do that, right?
no, well, but think about it like this.
Yeah,
In an RPG sense, in the sense of things being feeling good or whatever, I feel
yeah.
like they would definitely do.
I mean,
There's a really good chance they
that's
would do
fair.
items here.
Yeah.
However, if they are thinking ahead here,
Mm-hmm.
they might end up deciding to do something with like how they ended up patching Bloodhound Step and Quickstep, where they either limit or eliminate the iframes in PvP,
Right.
those PvE exclusive iframes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that
And
would
they
only
have the framework
be.
to do that, so who knows?
I feel like with this, like I rather, yeah, I feel like at best it should have very few iframes in PvP, and the moveset should be balanced like the restaurant because it'd be pretty cancer if like
Oh, dude, of
all
course.
the ideas of like that we had
Yeah.
were like kind of not the way they balanced it, but was just like, another, yet another kind of like attack or like
Mm-hmm.
weapon art that's kind of like meant to kind of subvert the normal limits of being able to dodge an attack and hit someone, right?
Yeah.
But like, this could be done in a really like interesting way
Mm-hmm.
if the situations of it are a lot more, I guess, calculated to the point where you need to read and you can't just like reactively like, like a fucking like reverse quick step backstab, like that got old
Yes.
pretty quick, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think also too in terms of just this attack in general, like if it's committal, you know what I mean? If it's just a single press with them only pressing L2 and it just results in doing that, right? Like that, even if it does have iframes there on like middle of the animation or like on startup, right? That kind of is a self-balancing factor in and of itself. The fact that it locks you into doing that attack that you could potentially just roll in and BS it. You know what I mean? Depending on the recovery. So like, and
Yeah,
once
or
again,
if
I
you miss,
like,
it looks like very I think, what is it? Yui even said in their video that
yeah,
like this seems to be very prone to missing randomly.
yeah, and that's like a perfect balancing factor for it too.
Now,
Mhm.
it could be a possibility that they're just noob and don't know how to do the epic gamer free aims, but I think there's a really good chance it also is just really limited in the ability that you
Right.
can control it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's completely fine too. And also I just want to kind of throw this out there, right? It's like it's not every iframe based thing or Ash of War in the game is just completely cringe and broken, right? Because we have examples of the Bloodhound Fang Ash of War, right? That has a really cool usage of iframes on the follow-up itself. And once again, that locks you into the follow-up afterwards after you get the iframes. And then we also have Helis, which is something that you can spam, right? Over and over again, the iframe portion. But it has extremely is it high recovery? It's high recovery into any action, right, after you press it, except for the follow-up
Yeah, except for
R2.
the
But
follow-up.
it,
So
it,
you're
it
locked
goes
in.
yeah, it goes into itself faster than any other action. I think except for the R2, but they front loaded all of the iframes and it has pretty significant recovery. You know what I mean? At the end. Like if you time that in anticipation for something, you are always going to get caught every single time. You know what I mean? And it's just I
Yeah,
want to reinforce that point that
that
from
that's actually really true. Yeah.
yeah, like from has they've done iframe based attacks that are not extremely fucking cringe. You know what I mean? So I like to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially for the design of that particular attack alone, because it's so similar to those two that I already mentioned. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential for it, and I'm really excited to see what it shapes up to be. And I hope it's a swappable Ash and it's not just locked. And also from what I've heard from this playtest in general is that most of these brand new weapon types have unlocked the capability of having a wide variety of ashes attunable to them. So most of what we're seeing actually doesn't have locked ashes, which is really cool. I was really
Um.
hoping for that.
So, I think actually Yumi and Sep a bit ago were actually like labbing Helis a lot, right, and testing those interactions.
Mm.
And from what I remember, it seemed like pretty like actually well bound in the way of, where it has like unique things it can do,
Mm-hmm.
but it is like it has like limitations to it that make it like clearly just not like a better dodge that, you know,
Exactly. Yes.
it doesn't completely make up for it. Like especially since it's locked like one moveset, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe theoretic, but it's like the fact that it's like actually a dodge move with a lot of like recovery and that limits your options is because like
Exactly.
think of it like this: if you like whiff an attack
Mm-hmm.
and then like the other player's going up to pressure you, right,
Yes.
and they're gonna like press their 2 NS stock R1 or whatever,
Yep.
right? Um, like of course you could press the button and this might actually escape like a lot of their immediate timing attacks or whatever, right? But like what if they just didn't press at the time and they just followed you when you did that, right? And they just hit
Yeah.
you right before you could even retaliate with a follow-up. You're kind of screwed, like in a reactive sense. You are kind of like screwed. Um, but it rewards you for like making those reads and stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I think people are kind of just reasonably kind of have a bad taste in their mouth with iframe stuff because
Well,
it's
right.
already so like difficult and unintuitive to learn the entire game, like because of the even the role, the one thing that should be like pretty consistent feels inconsistent because
Mm-hmm.
of how things scale on
Oh, I
latency and
know.
interact
Yep.
differently,
Yep. Yep.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you add something with a different amount of iframes and that can cancel into attack out of iframes like faster
Yes.
and all this stuff, like people, get a bad taste in their mouth about
I
it, you know?
completely understand that too, you know, and it's best to err on the side of caution with things, but it's also important to realize that there is multiple different avenues as to how something can function and not just doom about it too, you know, because
I
I see
think
a lot of that, you know. I just try
the
to look on the brighter side of stuff. But I understand that, you know, like people are, you know, rightly so. They've been burned, so it's also
yeah.
understandable, right?
Um Also since you mentioned Bloodhound Fang, like yeah, that's a pretty fair usage, but it's I think people don't really have like a much of discuss for that because it's so like limited. It's like one specific timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so slow and reactable or whatever,
Yeah.
and limited. But I think like even if you were to buff it, you could do it in a way that still seems fair. Because like think about it like this. Like the L2 is already pretty hard to hit, at least in a 1v1, right? What if you made it so the and I think I talked about this with like Gabriel, it might have been his idea a
Mm.
long time
Mm-hmm.
ago, where you actually can almost um you can charge it almost so you hold the amount of time you're in the like like invisibility
Yeah,
invulnerability phase,
yeah, yeah.
and you also have unlimited tracking. So for a set period, you can like kind of mix up when you do that and
Right.
just catch the other player, right? Like after you can get that mix
Yes.
up after you hit them, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't hit them and you miss it, then they can just like move out of the way or do, whatever else like counters or whatever. But you
Mm-hmm.
could do that in a lot of ways to make that feel fair because it's situational. It's not like they can just rip the iframe move out of nowhere.
Yeah. You know, just one other thing too, because what I'm reading in chat, Sai says Helis is a get out of jail free card that can freely counter punish any mistake or punish attempt. But I'll admit I'm a Helis hater, dude. So like on the prospect of the Helis once again, it's like the follow up is so like slow too for one and telegraphed as fuck. Like honestly, and I'm a Helis enjoyer, dude. I've played it a shit ton throughout the game's life cycle, and it's like you almost have to like anticipate the attack that you're using the L2 press on, and you have to catch them in recovery. Like most every, especially now after the lowered recovery buffs that nearly everything in the game has received, right? There's like literally no scenario unless you're fighting somebody who's using like a colossal weapon where you can press the Helis Ash on, you know, reaction and then be able to get the R2 for free. So once again, like it's an equalizing factor and it balances itself in a certain way. And once again, I will say this too, dude, is that to what Sai said about Helis as a get out of jail free card, just in general, it's like it's kind of a similar like talking point as to what people mentioned like after the Quickstep got nerfed, like, hardcore, right? And there was that whole discussion where it's like, oh, you know, like, the recovery cancel is so strong, right? But at the same time, if you choose to immediately use the recovery cancel out of your animation, which you need to do, you need to buffer the input to make use of that recovery cancel, then you're just effectively saying, hey, attack me immediately because I don't have enough iframes to actually avoid your incoming attack, that you're doing, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, it's a very similar situation to that. Granted, once again,
I do think people definitely like oversimplify things like that in terms of saying this is
yeah,
get out of jail free card when they haven't really thought of the interaction too much.
yes.
I will say I definitely think
So
like
a lot of nuance.
yeah, like Quickstep, you know, the being able to cancel that early is still pretty good,
Oh, it
but
is.
it's not like free
Right.
in the way people like frame it because you still have to like practice that. Like Quickstep and Bloodhound Step as they
Mm-hmm.
are really good, but you
Yes.
actually need to decide to use roll in certain places
Right.
because you need that meatiness, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's sort of a matter of knowing where to use them, right? Because
Yes.
quick step and bloodhound step, because they activate on press and not release, are really
Right.
good for things you know you can react, but for things that have like mix-ups or whatever, then like that actually, you know, like force you to make a decision in that way because you
Mm-hmm.
can't react to it. Um, then you need normal rolls still, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like jail out of free, but it's
Yeah.
also it still also is really good.
Yeah, indeed, exactly. You know, and, like Crown said, I think Helis is still susceptible to iframe abuse on latency, since you trade with the Ash if you try to actually attack them on the
Yep.
punish window, right? And once again, fuck latency, god damn it. Rollback netcode in a From Software game would be the peak, dude. Ugh.
Maybe in 15 years, but
Yeah, right. Well, if From
yeah.
does a solely PvP centric game in the future,
Hmm.
who knows, you know, what the possibilities are
Yeah,
there. So,
yeah. I feel like it would be a big undertaking
it
because it would
definitely
be something
would.
they're entirely like not used to. But I think it is possible, and I would be like so fucking down for it. But
Same. Yeah,
look
yeah.
here.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure. Like they're kind of so off by like saying the free punish because like just look at this. So right, where's the Helos? Oh yeah, this is the dodge, right? It's pretty fucking long. I think it's yeah, it's right here, like 20. But then to get the weapon art, there's like a big gap actually between when you can respond. And then even after that, it takes 13 frames worthy to actually hit,
Yes.
and that's also depends on the distance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like imagine dodging like a light attack or most things light attacks. I feel like this is not going to get a guaranteed punish. What
Exactly,
feels
dude.
like it's going to get a guaranteed punish on is something that's like maybe um fucking what is it called? Barbaric roar or something like that. But what I
Right.
think they're thinking is when you do get put in this situation after doing anything like decently committal, is
Mm-hmm.
it does feel really scary, especially if they're out of range for you to
Oh, of
hit them.
course. Of course.
Because like you can try to trade or something, but you're not gonna win that trade. So
Mm-hmm.
you are put in a mix-up situation kind of
Yes.
because
Yeah.
they can vary the timing of their attack or
Of
whatever,
course.
and
Mm-hmm. And
that
once
is
again,
kind of
that's
like
what makes
scary.
it cool, because it's like that's what I've always loved about the Helis Ash design, Dynas Finesse, is just the fact that it's like a roll because it's still punishable, but it immediately puts you in a position to counterattack. And I think that's really cool. They took the baseline framework of how a roll works, but because the rolling attacks are so much slower a lot of times, right, transitionally, that the Helix provides that, it's the same oh shit button, but it doesn't put you at as much of a disadvantage. You know what I mean? It immediately puts you back on your feet so you can have the opportunity to dish out aggression again, you know? And I think that's cool, and I think that's healthy in a certain way, right? But once again, latency, all of these things play and make things so much more annoying. And
Mhm.
granted, a lot of people, I would imagine, are jaded because it's like you go up against a laggy person in the
With
arena or
Helix.
something. Yeah, and then they're just spamming the Ash over and over again. It's like, I understand the disdain that people have for it because of situations like that, but genuinely, the Helix Ash is pretty well balanced as far as iframe based attacks go, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
also on the weapon choice that's like limited to, like it just feels like it stops pretty like early in terms of like how far it can be abused, in my understanding. Even on like high lat, it more feels like a like the immediate options you can do is like more limited because it's more limited to like knowledge, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
to know where you can punish them or how you play against it. You're not going to learn that in one match with this random laggy Helix user, right?
Exactly, right. Once again, so much nuance, right? Yeah. No, and I appreciate
Hmm.
you pulling up all this frame data too, because I haven't looked at this specifically, but yeah, I want to get a
Yeah,
better
yeah,
idea on
yeah.
it.
But yeah, like look at also like you have the right attack, like
Mm-hmm.
you have like the second light attack as
Yep.
like your immediate option.
Yep.
Um, and you can like do the follow up or you can dodge, but basically everything else is so delayed.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if the opponent does nothing when you dodge like this,
Yeah.
it is a pretty like not clearly like advantageous situation for the person doing it because like if the person doesn't attack and they're close, they might have already decided and you haven't like seen it yet that they're going to hit you, right? Um, and even if they don't, and let's say the opponent like whiffs an attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost kind of like equal, just the options are different.
Yes.
They have like a lot more options. They can move and do all this shit. But you are limited to like what I mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's almost like or literally is like a stance. It is literally just like a stance.
Yeah, yeah, honestly.
Stance situation, stance mix
Mm-hmm.
situation, and the favorability for this person just depends on the context. What have they
Yes,
dodged?
exactly.
And, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and once again, all of that coming full circle too, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
It really sucks how much this stuff is kind of limited by the fact that like the netcode is that as it
I
is.
no, I know. Ah, it's the problem that we all face being from software PvP enjoyers, dude. Ugh,
You know,
unfortunately.
um, well, before my hand problems started to show,
Mm.
I've been playing a lot of Tekken, and at one point I had like a thought experiment where like, wait a minute, let's say theoretically this game didn't have rollback and had a similar like network protocol to like I don't know if network protocol is the right word, but like just netcode
Yeah, in
to
general, yeah.
Souls
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like how attack registration works and how that
Right.
stuff is networked. And immediately upon thinking about it and like realizing
Yeah.
how it changed interactions, I was
Uh-huh.
just like, oh, I would never want to touch this
Yeah.
game again.
Uh-huh. Yeah, dude, exactly. It's
Because
it's oh.
it would make the game so cancer
Uh-huh.
for like the defender. Like you get hit by something like normally things you could punish on block, you would not be able to punish on block with like a laggier opponent, or they're fucking like hyper armor or their super armor moves or whatever would like be harder to like negate with the
Mm-hmm.
normal
Yep.
it trade would like I it literally was painful to think you couldn't sidestep, you couldn't
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
Is it I yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
cannot.
not okay. It's really not okay. Oh no.
But like, you know, the shit that makes us like say like hell yeah here is like somehow
Yeah.
able to make us like tolerate it, you know?
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, there's always that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we more or less broke down the LGS. What about so yeah, let's dive more into the reverse sabers here.
Oh, yeah, we were on that. Like, what
Yeah.
else is there to talk about with the
I
reverse
mean, we
sabers,
we see
bro?
the running R1 here, which is
Mm.
I don't know if
Is
like what we
maybe
saw
it's
before
R2.
is the running R2 or this is the running
I
R2.
think this is more likely to be the running R1.
Yeah, I think so too because of how fast the first hit comes out, you know?
Yeah, the
That
other one
definitely
looks
makes
like
sense.
a lot more like heavy hitting and a lot
Yeah,
more
yeah.
um But
And
and look how fast they recover out of the second swing. They literally just like pivot instantly.
yeah, I know. Yeah, the recovery's so low on this. But once again, for attacks that are so delayed with the second hit, that makes sense for them to have
Yeah.
extremely low recovery, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's
Mm-hmm.
fair. And also with how like it's tracking them, it literally looks like it just could swing by someone without hitting them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's
Like where do they recover? Like oh, like
right there.
already here.
Yeah, like right there.
Like boop. And then let's go back. So running attacks are a bit more difficult to like discern when they start, but I think if you pay attention to the arms, yeah, somewhere around here. Am I streaming this by the? Yeah, I definitely am. Okay, this is kind of rough, but 70 frames, so that would be like 35, so that's about a bit more than a second before you finish this whole thing. And the first hits, let's see, this happens right. Oh, there's the trail, so it
Mm-hmm.
starts a bit behind, but we'll count that. Um 24, so that's I may have underestimated the startup amount.
Mm.
But if I didn't, then that's 24 frames to 60, which is 12 in 30, which means that this thing might have like a pretty fast startup in terms of like the backswing or like it coming from the back,
Yeah.
which has some like early potential, but this thing does look rather limited.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's okay because the running R2 looks fucking insanely good. So.
yeah. Oh, we actually does this potentially have backswing potential? Like, let's see. Like,
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
let's say you're like right in front of them, and this is the frame that
Yeah.
you hit,
Yeah, that you got to roll. Yeah.
and then it's so hard because the camera
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah. Yeah.
flies by.
Whips around. Damn it, from soft. XD. Yeah, no, Heavenly said too that it looks similar to the power stance straight sword running L1.
Mhm.
Because the power stance straight sword running L1, if you like react the first part, it nearly always roll catches you.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
follow up part,
exactly.
yeah.
It's actually really funny how like Power Stance Straight Swords has that kind of like clear synergy where like because of situationally
Mm-hmm.
how threatening the PSSS is or like the L1 is,
Yeah.
the would be normally like very impractical. Like this was especially true in like 1.9, I think, where like um or actually wait, does the first hit break? I forget in this patch
On what attack? Sorry.
on the Power Stance Straight Swords running L1.
No, it does not.
Okay.
The second part
But
always does though.
um either in either patch, it was sort of a situation of where like normally this would be attack that would be like very bad on its own, but because people are like Twitch reacting PSSS often, right? Then it situationally can actually be like pretty decent. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people like throw it out multiple times in a row
Yeah.
because of like you once you got that conditioning down, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it is pretty cool how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see more things like that.
Yeah, Grass has mentioned that this actually looks very similar, just like in actually animation and functionality to the running L1 of Power Stance Halberd and Reaper, respectively, as well.
Hmm.
It's very similar in terms of design.
I can't. The fucking omen is hiding
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This is the first frame I do see the. Oh, actually, that is the frame where it looks to be hitting the
Yeah.
middle, so that should be good enough. That seems to be like what, like this is here and then this is here. That's like 20 frames, which is like 10 in between. So I think it could be cleared with one roll.
Mm.
Um, even if they rolled directly back. Um, but yeah, it really depends on like the timing
Yeah. It's
and how
hard.
it's
Once again,
rolled.
it's hard to tell here, but maybe
Mhm.
it has that for it, which would be really cool. Like a kind of mix up between the running R2 and the running R1 there. I think that's really cool.
Also, I think like especially here, like a frame trap that works off of like is timed to a back roll is like completely fine because of how specific it needs to be. Because like if a player rolls like diagonally or the spacing's a bit different or something, it could easily mess that up and make it feel like not guaranteed or whatever, right? Um, so like I don't think that's like a thing that could easily get excessive because I mean we've already seen it with like the power stance straight swords, especially like lat. Lat is a thing that really like neuters the threat of a
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Oh,
these like
of course, yeah.
potential frame trap stuff,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they're more, I guess, limited like spatial coverage wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why like say spin slash, especially on like Nagakiba, is kind of an exception and has like more like sweet spots and stuff
Yeah, yeah, of
that
course.
show up
Yep.
because it literally just hits all around, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You know what's interesting too with these, with that attack in particular, like because it's so forward momentum based too,
Hmm.
you could potentially throw it out way earlier and then purposefully miss the first part and then land. And if the last part in the chain or the last hit in that respective attack breaks always, then that could be an interesting way of using that attack too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can definitely do that too.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a lot of ways to be kind of like conscious of how that works.
Yeah.
How does this go from like the what is it like start to full charge? I wonder. It's so funny seeing them like trying to get off like the
Yeah, I
scripted.
know, I know, yeah.
They just edge walk in between it. Okay,
God, that's such
72.
an insane attack, dude. I love to see this. Once again, all R2s should be designed with a ton of forward momentum, especially charged, fully charged R2s.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the thing that they excel at. And that From has done such a good job with certain R2s in Elden Ring with their design like that, but other
Mm-hmm.
ones they just completely like forgot about it.
Yep.
That definitely needs to be like the rule when designing R2s is give them a lot of forward momentum.
Or something else that like makes up for it, right? Like if you have like a
Exactly. Yeah.
projectile or if the weapon has like a lot of
Right.
reach.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Cuz you need to make up for the fact that it is a slower attack, you know.
Hmm. Oh, can you imagine if this has a like a feint?
Oh my god. Oh, dude. Oh, that's a crazy
Imagine
prospect. I mean,
like
they are reverse grip curve swords, so maybe. Oh my god, that would be crazy, dude,
how
with
does
that amount of
the
lunge.
do they show the uncharged or two somewhere here?
I don't. I think they all like they show the startup, but it never goes off.
Yeah, I would imagine it would just be like this, but like much shorter range,
Yeah,
right?
just a little bit. Yeah, it's probably
But can you
about like half
imagine
range or something like that. Yeah.
the like how you could do the feint? There's like I'd imagine just like a quick sort of cross slash where they bring up the weapons and maybe like recoil a bit, right?
Yeah.
But like you could do that really well as a way to kind of like further like cement some sort of mix up here or whatever.
Oh,
But
for sure, for sure. Well, especially if
it
the
all depends.
uncharged is like super fast too to like activation. Like
Mhm.
I don't know, dude. That could be a crazy mix up in general because that's a
Mm,
very like telegraphed animation to make somebody like panic. It's very similar to like the obviously it's not going to be this egregious, but I'm just using Raptor Talons as an example, right? With the when you fully charge it, you do that massive lunge forward, but
mhm.
the uncharged is very fast, but it's stationary, right?
Yeah.
So if it's kind of like a balance between that, of course I don't want the follow up to True Combo like Raptor Talons does, but
Mhm.
yeah, and hopefully that gets gone in the upcoming patch. I have a sneaking suspicion that that's going to be the case, but
Yeah, a good chance,
yeah, yeah. No, I really do like the design of this R2 though. That's really hype. It's always cool to see something that looks viable in a PvP setting, especially a fully charged attack.
It is like a bit more than a second. I wish I could think of like a reference or two that would like how fast is like the Raptor's full charge? Like I feel like it's a bit faster than this, right?
I have no idea.
Oh, I could just pull this up with
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
Raptors. I feel like most likely, like with the tuning of this,
Mm-hmm.
especially since this is like the first release, unless we see something really interesting in the details that looks like it was almost designed for PvP,
Yeah.
then but I don't think I've seen enough details to like kind of be convinced that
Oh
this
yeah,
is
of
going to
course.
be good in PvP, but
Yeah, no, it just it
has
has the
potential.
potential. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the they are okay. Oh, this is not okay. I need to make it exclusive to Raptor Tunnels. Oh wait. It's over here. Two hand. Um, okay. I'm pretty sure the full charge is. Oh yeah, it's only fucking I-27, which is like
Jeez. Yeah, it's
9 frames.
extremely, yeah.
This is 9 frames slower.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it does require a like a kind of like a mix up like kind of timing
Yeah,
thing
of
where like
course, of course, yeah.
with the Raptors talons, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can get off the full charge that way, we've seen. So I
Yes.
feel this unfortunately may not be able to like work as well, because I feel like it may give the other player like a clue too early that like if they roll, they could just
Yeah,
double roll
yeah,
again.
potentially, yeah. So this R2 is going to be like decent mix-up wise after landing like the running R2 if the running R2 has like type 2 hit stun, for example, you know. This would be a cool
Yeah.
thing to do after. Of course, it's jumpable. Unless the uncharged like brings them both up like in a cross section, kind of like the power stance dagger,
Yeah.
CL1 for example, right?
Also depends on how fat the hitboxes are and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but
Indeed, indeed, yeah.
and it's possible too that like I don't know if it doesn't really work too well, then they could buff it or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to have this necessarily. It
No,
really
yeah.
depends on the context. We have so little information.
I know, I know. It's crazy. You know, one thing that I will point out too is like we do see the first two R1s of the two-handed moveset of the reverse grip curve swords in the initial gameplay reveal trailer too.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, so we could go back to that separate video and
Yeah, we could. I
yeah.
could download that real quick. But
Yeah.
I wanted to look real quickly at
Of
the
course.
beast claws or whatever.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure from like what I see right here, I almost feel that the this like step right here is almost like there's not just like one move. I think this is actually almost like a stance that comes from the step. And
Potentially, that's a good point, dude. That would be really cool.
like this is looks like where the step starts, but then
Uh-huh.
like I want you to pay attention to like the arms and the posture here.
Yeah.
Um, like see how this like their back kind of sort of
Yeah.
like
Unless
kind
that's
of like
unless that's the
pouncing.
startup animation of this attack that's coming, where they're hunching down more before they jump. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be one animation still. It's
Yeah.
not sure, but I would hope it is because I feel like that would be cooler. And like it would be kind of annoying to commit to all this in like one, you know. So I'd imagine it would probably, if this is how it works, that it would start. Maybe it starts like right there. Like see how like bonk, like look at
Yeah.
that bonk. Like that's where I imagine it would start. And in that case, this initial period would be like 22 frames would be like 11 before you get to like do the follow-ups.
Yeah.
Theoretically, because we still don't know,
Right.
but
Yeah.
um
Also, just this whole sequence of attacks that we see here is just crazy, dude.
mhm.
Like, what the hell? It's
This is
actually
definitely gonna be
Sekiro.
one of those fucking like uh knowledge like serious like knowledge check phases that the player base is going to have
Uh-huh.
as like you get into like new players and vets alike, you're gonna get into invasion, someone's just gonna press L2 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 with this and you know you're you're gonna have a bit of a bad time, but
Yeah.
it's like
You know,
oh if it actually happens here, then that would actually be like I16 something. That's not bad.
no.
Um yeah, it still depends because that's pretty high up or whatever. But and if it's all together, that would be something more like 44, which would be like I-20, which is or actually no, it would be like I-25 or something, which would be like the Raptors full charge or whatever timing. But
Mm-hmm.
oh, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I just wanted to point out that both like from the articles that I've read and I've heard this kind of reinforced from the videos that I've watched too, that both the what the fuck are those called? The palm strike weapons, the martial art based weapon. I forget what they're called. The dried leaf arts. That weapon and the beast claws that we're seeing here. From what I've read, they mentioned that if you miss the attacks on these, they have incredibly high recovery, kind of similar to a system that was in Dark Souls
Yeah.
1 when
Mm-hmm.
I assume when you like would miss with like a hammer or a halberd. And also they mentioned that you take like a defensive deficit too while using these weapons. So I wanted to point that out and mention it because that seems like a really cool balancing factor. And they also mentioned that it's effectively it turns your character into like a glass cannon is how they related these two weapons. And that's why in the preview, like when one of the folks that wrote the it was either the PSN blog or the PC gamer article that said the devs actually actively discouraged people from using like the dried leaf arts or the bear claws because it's like they kind of said this has a high learning curve tied to it.
Oh,
So that's really interesting too.
that
So
is kind
yeah.
of encouraging.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
take and once again that reinforces the kind of design philosophy that From Software is taking with these brand new weapon types. They're really thinking about it. You know what I mean? They're adding give and take to these things. It's not just, "Oh, this excels at everything. Why use anything else?" You know what I mean? Once
yeah.
again, the kiss curse system that needs to be in place. That's a core design pillar and design philosophy that From Software has always tried to uphold, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's cool to see that being reinforced with these new designs.
Also, look at this. Look at this. So, like, since again, like, it depends on how this works. Is it like it stands here or whatever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like how much of the forward momentum tracking.
Yes.
But like, if you actually get someone into this situation right here, where you hit them with that,
Yeah.
and let's say it's like level 3 hit stun or
Right,
something,
right, right, right. Yep.
then this could be like the timing on these two hits is like a frame trap, like in terms
Yes.
of timing. And
Mm-hmm.
then here, this as well is just about at a frame trap timing.
Mm-hmm.
So that does look potentially like actually pretty scary if you get hit by it, but
Yeah.
again, very context dependent.
Well, I really like that the initial attack that comes out after the dash or whatever that we see, that attack right there, is you jump up into the air so you can potentially avoid attacks, incoming attacks like horizontal
Yeah.
sweeps with that R1. Like that's so fucking cool, dude.
Hmm.
Just fucking jumping over PSGS, crouching L1s and attacking them over it, dude.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And once again, I want to reinforce that too because like From Software has gotten so good with their hit detection, dude, you know, over the years, specifically in Elden Ring where you can just like you can duck under bosses attacks and shit like that and you can even crouch strafe as well as we can, you know, in PvP too
Mhm.
for certain attacks. It's incredible, you know. And once again, the whole like hands and arms in the top half of the active hitbox when you're in the air. I don't know if that's going to apply to an attack like this. Who knows?
There's a good
But
chance. I feel like it depends on the attack, but a lot
yeah.
of the time they'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
However, one thing I will mention,
Mm-hmm.
um, what was I thinking about? What were you saying just now?
The potential of avoiding certain attacks with this particular attack where you jump up into the air.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, the vulnerability of the top half of your torso, which is it looks really good too because you raise both of your arms up there. You know what I mean when you're doing that attack. So it gets the arms out of the way of being hit from the bottom too, which is really cool.
Oh, I think I was thinking of actually one reason why they actually may have more freedom in this game to like do a lot of these precise hitbox things and whatever is like in DS3, the hitboxes were much fatter and stuff. But the reason for that, I think, was because they didn't have frame interpolation on hitboxes. So if a hitbox on one frame is like to the right of the opponent, and on the next frame it's on to the left, if the hitbox isn't big enough to clip them on both things, then it might actually just miss and go through the opponent visually, right?
Yeah, yep.
But they changed that in Elden Ring. I discovered this when
Huh.
I was looking into that weird like cursed PSGS range extension spin tech
Right.
bullshit,
Oh, okay,
right?
gotcha. Yep.
Because the interpolation fucks up there, right? And I was like
Yeah.
confused, like, wait a minute, why doesn't this happen in DS3, right?
Mm.
Because I'm pretty sure, like, you know, you have the two-hand greats, the claymore, and it's weird tracking, but
Oh
that's
yeah.
only because it has tracking during the hitbox, and the what is it? The hitbox is so large that it looks like you're doing like a sweep in between frames, but no, it's
Yeah.
just hitting on those frames. But
Gotcha.
in this game, they literally do have like interpolation where they sweep between the frames, but it's just when you have that perfect timing, kind of where it snaps the player direction or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
in that way, it just fucks up the calculation somehow and like makes the
Gotcha.
math all weird and like makes the hitbox project it out in a weird way, you know,
Yeah.
some bullshit.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I found a way to fix it too.
Oh, really?
All they need to do is just where they define the points of what defines like a hitbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like basically like different points on the model that they decide where they use to create the capsule, right?
Okay, yep.
Um, if you just simply in the param data reverse those two. So instead of the start one being the one at the end, like with the
Right.
tip, and
Yes.
the
Yep.
end one being at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
then it fixes all of this. So I don't know why this happens because of that, right?
Yeah, that's
It's so
whack.
weird.
Yeah. Once again, you know, from software moment.
Hmm.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's so cursed.
God, dude, this fucking dude, like that right there, that has to be the neutral R1 chain, right?
Mm. Well, like let's look at how they. Okay, they went like this. Wait, was that like a back quick step? Yeah,
Yeah,
they take a.
it's a backward version of what we see them do initially. Yeah.
That makes me think more likely that it is, like I said, like a stance
Yeah,
because
yeah. That you get a
I feel like
unique based attack out of that every time. Kind of like similar to what they did with Quickstep and BHS, how, you know, you can either do the back step attack if you dodge backward or to the side, but if you dodge
yeah,
straight on, you get the rolling attack.
it could be that they just made it so you know it's like the same attack conceptually, right? It's supposed to be basically the same, but just different depending on the direction, and maybe it's one whole animation and not like a separate step and like input, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it is more likely to be like a step here, and it almost feels like from these attacks that we've seen,
Yeah.
like it goes into a different like stance or like follow-up state, right? Because like, oh wait, that one goes up like this. This could be just like a R2 or R1 chain,
Maybe.
possibly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so hard to tell because it's so fucking erratic.
I know, dude. It's insane. It's literally they took the beast claw weapon from Bloodborne and just put it in here, dude. It's
I feel like this
crazy.
was probably like an even more like on steroids version.
Yeah, no, it is. It is for sure. It's more akin to like the transformed, like the transformation alterate. Fucking. Why can't I speak?
Um.
What's the altered? Yes, moveset variant when you actually have the mainline like primal beast rune on, and it
Oh.
transforms the actual beast moveset. It looks way similar to that.
Okay. I haven't played
Yeah.
enough Bloodborne, so maybe
Gotcha.
I've just missed like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
crazy version of that.
Yeah, no problem.
Do we see dueling shield moveset here?
We do. We see a neutral R1 back right before he gets grabbed. What I assume is a two-handed neutral R1.
Oh, right
Which
there.
it's a thrusting based attack, which is so fucking insane, dude.
It's hard to like see.
Counter hit with
It
block
looks like an
frames.
R2 almost, like maybe it's like a guard, but like look at this, or maybe this is when it starts. Like look, maybe this is just a guard, and then like
He might just
here.
be blocking first before he does it though, too. You gotta keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at the alignment though of the twin blade. And look how it suddenly,
Yeah,
boom,
yeah.
maybe that's where it starts.
Maybe, yeah.
I could be totally off base here, but
Well, just from what I've looked at of the dueling shield frame data, this looks very akin to the neutral R1 two-handed in terms of speed and all of
where
that.
can I check that?
That is on Amelia's website. It is A057, I think. Yes.
Okay, let me check that.
Mm-hmm. Which the two-handed moveset on the dueling shield has hyper armor, by the way, as well as guard frames in
Oh,
its recovery.
door shield moment.
Potentially.
It does remind me of that. I remember like
Uh-huh.
really early on being like so fucking like perplexed by the fact that it has both
Oh,
and they
I
have different
know.
frames. And like
Yeah, yeah.
guard shield, I think is like one of the best kind of like knowledge check weapons like in the series just because of how fucking different it is. You know?
Yo, completely
Like,
agree.
I still don't think I figured it out like since I last played. And it's just like learned enough like vibes wise to like maybe not get stomped by it.
Yeah.
You said 57?
57. A057, yep.
Okay. Two hand R1.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead and pull that frame data up
Um,
on screen.
so you see here that I measured 25. So that would be like I-14 almost. I actually no, I-15. So let's switch over.
Wait, you know what? Actually, hold on. Because like some of the two-handed R2s I believe do have a small amount of block frames at the start and then they stop and then they kick in back later.
Hmm.
So, yeah, definitely look at the R2 as well as this, but
So this appears to be like
you notice that the guard frames kick in
okay.
before your attack frames come in too. They could kick in one frame before the activate box
Yeah,
comes out, dude.
that's funny.
This thing's either gonna be extremely bad or extremely good. There's literally no in between with this thing, especially with the stamina, like the stamina
I
damage changes that From made. Like they need
yeah,
to
I
give
get
it
what
at
you mean.
least like 70 stability, because otherwise it's just
Oh
gonna be dog shit.
no.
Yeah, I know you can't. You. Oh, dude,
Look at this.
that is what we're seeing then. Yeah, is the
Look at this.
yeah. So we're seeing an
It,
R2 there. Holy shit, that's
wait,
crazy.
is that an R2 or just like it's a second R1 it says.
Oh, it is the second R1. Okay, so
But like
maybe
look at the light
did
pack, look
they?
how fast it starts
Oh,
up.
I know,
Like
dude. Yeah, the cancel, and then you get guard frames immediately after into the follow-up R1s. I know, dude. Like the structure of this thing's insane.
bro, the thing you could do is literally fucking just like you hit them with this or you whiff it even, and then basically the moment their attack's about to connect, you
Mm-hmm.
reactively just fucking
Yes,
block
exactly.
it.
Yeah, it's like a
Target
pseudo
it.
parry. Yep, and then you get it's once again it's a thrusting based attack too. Granted, they're gonna mix in bashes, which I imagine is what the follow up R1 is, considering the first R1 is a thrust that we see in the trailer or in the new footage rather. Then the follow up is potentially like a bash, and then the third R1 is another poke, and then the chain finisher is another bash or something like that, right? Because
Mhm.
R1-3 is very similar to the data of R1 number one, and then R1-4 is a like very similar to. Or wait, is that not the case? Oh no, it just repeats that all the way through.
That would make sense because actually it kind of like reminds me of like I don't know, I just imagine like poke and then it's just like you flip the shield and then
Yeah.
like another
Well,
like poker bash
yeah,
and
maybe,
then
yeah,
circling.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because you reposition, and then notice that the guard frames at the start get longer and longer progressively as you get through the chain at the startup,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. Dude, the way that they're designing this thing looks really fucking cool, genuinely.
It looks
And once again,
cool.
dude, the disable block stun means that it can't be guard broken, correct? As well as not,
Yes.
yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Wait a
So
minute.
yeah,
It's on all of them, right?
yes,
Yeah, so this means that yeah. You literally could just reaction trade with certain things. It is
on the
still
follow-ups, yeah, yeah.
relatively like so that enough that like that would definitely like make things with low recovery just able to just get out of there, right?
Right, yeah.
But I feel like I think the most upsetting thing here though is that I feel like it needs to have like The R2's probably cancels really slow. And all these other cancels are like slow like this, so I feel like you you're kind of like limited to doing like the R1s. And I feel like they might just like roll out of there and there's like
Well,
hmm,
and here's the thing. Here's the balancing factor that I'm thinking that this is going to come with, right? Is like this potentially, because it has the guard frames in recovery, you know what I mean? Potentially like it's going to have very poor tracking. That seems to me like how they could potentially balance it, and maybe we see something of that with what we see from the neutral R1. I'm not entirely sure, but once again, like the guard, look at how far it extends too. Like you can, if you just sit there and don't move, look at how many frames it still has of
oh
block
no, this
after you
is
move, right? Is that not how it works?
yeah. No, no, you're right.
Okay.
There's like a really I feel like what they should have done though is probably stop the disable block stun at a certain point because there's like a really funny thing you can do. Here, actually, I'll show you this
Okay.
via this way. It's actually really fucking silly.
Okay. Darcy
Here.
Scout said, "Did Valorheart have disable block stun?" It did not, if I recall correctly. Right?
Um, no, it did at certain. It depends. I'm pretty sure.
I remember getting guard broken all the time on
Oh, you
it
didn't get
during.
guard broken,
Okay.
but that's because DS3 was different in that.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
I'm pretty
Gotcha.
sure.
Gotcha. Okay. So it did, but in a different way, technically. Oh, and same thrusting sword animation with the the
Yeah,
Chickadea,
but
dude. Insane. God tier.
here. So if I get a stock, and then if I get fingerprint shield, our favorite one,
Yup.
and I just one hand. Okay, and then I go to your use animations. What? Why is it holding it?
Dude, imagine. Dude,
Oh,
he's doing bicep curls with the shield every time he brings it up. Insane. Holy shit.
damn.
That's so good.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I was probably looking at like the
Insane. Oh, the torch animation, dude.
no, he's just like poking you as he like fucking blocks like the rocks that are being thrown
Yeah,
down from the
yeah,
castle.
dude.
Okay, this is probably the right one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so take a look here. This is the disabled block stun,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
But notice how it lasts till here, right?
Yeah.
So like you can just kind of like shield poke and then just like stare at your opponent, and then when they hit you, then suddenly like run out or like do an immediate action,
Oh,
right?
really?
Yeah, because like normally you'd be restricted by the recovery, but since you
Yeah.
do this, it's kind of gimmicky, but it's still like very silly, and I think like it would be better off if they just like cut it off at this point
Yeah,
because
just because that's a janky interaction in general that
yeah, because
exists.
you'd
Yeah.
expect that if you're guarding, then you're
Yeah.
going to like you should be continue guarding against your shield poke, or
Yeah,
else you're
yeah.
gonna get hit. But
Exactly.
instead, it's more like
Yeah, you
you
just
need
pull.
to just know the timing. Like it's
Yeah.
so silly.
Yeah,
But
that's weird as hell.
they actually fixed this for something, but they forgot to do it for the rest.
Mm,
Because look at this.
that sounds very Elden Ring, yes. Yeah.
This is a heavy thrusting sword, which is like the newer one in this.
Yep.
It cuts cut off here, which is like slightly after the guard, which is makes more sense. Because
Yeah.
like right after the shield actually is like moving out of the way, right?
Yeah.
But like they didn't apply it for everything else.
Yeah, well, once again, the spaghetti code. It makes perfect sense. They forget about that. They do something new and they do it right. Damn it. Ugh.
Maybe they were like, oh wait a minute, okay, this should be like this. Wait a minute, shouldn't we like retroactively apply this to the other animations? Nobody's gonna care, you know.
Well, okay, one thing that I do want to point out, now that we're on that topic and that kind of got brought up front, I read a recent interview with Miyazaki, and he talked about what a challenge it was to actually create a game like Elden Ring in terms of the sheer content and scale of the game, you know? Right? And he mentioned that he actually could not be involved with every single development avenue and sect, every single development team, like he's usually in cahoots with every single previous project that he did, right? But because of Elden Ring's scale and immense size, he wasn't able to, right? And he also mentioned that each development team, for all the different avenues of the game, right? They are always usually in cahoots with one another too, like in the previous games, and that's why, like, you know, like you take again like Dark Souls 3 and there's just all of this standardization with it, right? But with Elden Ring, once again, he mentioned that that was not really possible because of how much of a workload every single team respectively had. And once again, when you hear it from the horse's mouth like that, and you hear that and you understand, it starts making a lot more sense why there's just like straight downgrades from what they've done prior. You know what I mean? And it's like because they weren't able to double triple check all of this shit because this project is fucking huge, you know?
Yeah. Like,
So that's I just wanted to throw that out there too, because I found that to be really fascinating, and it started adding up and making a lot more sense as to why there's so many fucked up interactions and discrepancies as there is in Elden Ring, you know?
yeah, like it really seems like with how, I guess, artistic the developers are, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like really, even though they obviously have their kind of like principles and like design uh like patterns and plans with their team and stuff, they don't seem it seems like they're a creative freedom that they give each other
Yeah.
in terms of what actually allows us to see some of this really cool shit, like, just hidden about, is exactly kind of also what ends up kind of like making us kind of get disappointed with some of these things, because they're not, they might pop off in like one little degree, but they're not going to have like the motivation or the like ability to kind of like match that quality in every future thing that might be like, in that territory, right?
Yeah.
Because it might have just been like a like spontaneous idea, and like, but they're trying to get the fucking like game out, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
it's kind of like understandable.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
And yeah, it's again, the the RPG game kind of takes priority over the
Of
PvP. The
of course.
PvP,
Of
even though
course.
like they obviously put in a lot of effort just from their previous experience with the other games to make sure the PvP is like minimally like playable. Like they make sure all the player movesets don't suddenly get infinites and all this other stuff, right? Or
Yeah.
like if you're like a PvP theory crafter, you'll notice a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time that like
Oh, I
as
am.
you're searching to like how I can break stuff, how I can like,
Yes.
cook stuff, you'll
Mm-hmm.
notice that a lot of things stop at a dead end because they specifically design
Mm-hmm.
things to not get
Y-
excessive in a
yes.
lot of ways, right?
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, like they're definitely conscious about it. I just don't think, I think with their priorities, it's not enough of a it's enough of a priority where they need to get to that minimal thing, but it's not enough of a priority where they feel like they literally need to like get it to some like bigger level than we've already seen,
Well,
right?
right. Yeah, and like to that point too, it's like when you're actually crafting the game itself, and somebody mentioned this in chat too, that, you know, because I mentioned, you know, with like all of those developmental differences, you know, with Elden Ring as opposed to the previous games, somebody mentioned, do you think that's still going to be the case for the DLC itself? And honestly, I think it's completely different, right? Because before they had to design the entire framework of the game supplementally to doing everything else, right? And now that they've actually have this basis that they built, they spent the past 2.5 years only like not having to worry about any of that, like constructing the game itself, because they already have framework to build off of. And now clearly what we're seeing is them just going absolutely fucking batshit insane with everything in the DLC, you know? And I think that paradigm shift is the reason for that, because what I mentioned before potentially is not the case. You know, now that everything is fucking constructed. And once again, there's other exterior factors that play into this too, because fucking Bandai Namco publisher pressures to meet a specific fucking release date. We know that Elden Ring got delayed by a month, had to cut a bunch of shit, all of that, dude, you know? We as the player base didn't even get to see version 1.0 when it released on February 25th in 2022. We were on version 1.2 when it actually got released worldwide. right? And historically, I don't know if you guys have looked into it, but like 1.0 of Elden Ring is it's dude, like it's hilariously unfinished. Like it's insane, dude. And the amount of like weird interactions, enemy placements, all of that shit that they had to tweak within that last month that they were given. Presumably they probably wanted to delay it by more originally, but Bandai was like, no, you're beholden to, you know, etc., right? And that's why it's really exciting to me that From Software actually acquired the full Elden Ring IP from Bandai Namco early
Depends on the region.
What's up? Sorry.
It depends on the region. Like I've heard the specifics of it, but yes, in some regions, I believe it's like
In relation to what? Sorry.
like FromSoft owning the IP of Elden Ring.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's new info to me. Okay, so do you have more information on that?
No, I just
Okay,
remember I
okay,
remember
okay.
reading it.
Okay, interesting.
So clarifying it.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. So, but regardless of that, you know what I mean? If they're not necessarily fully beholden to Bandai Namco anymore, what that means for the DLC itself is that it's From Software themselves deciding that the release date that they picked is the finished product. You know what I mean? That they're not beholden to, oh, the publisher needs to have it, you know, like out on this date, right? This is actually From Software themselves saying,
yeah,
we have worked on this and we are comfortable with this release date, right? And that is incredibly exciting because that potentially means that for the first time almost ever, that this is a From release that isn't fucking gimped, you know what I mean? And this, it actually has everything in it that they intended. And that is incredibly exciting, man.
If it is true, but do keep in mind that even if that is the case, that you know, From Software is still like like a big private company with a lot of people on it, and also it has a parent company too.
Of course,
that
yes.
also, you know, other companies have stake in stuff.
Yeah,
So
yep.
it's very possible that like as much or even possibly more, they even might be more like circumdeadlines. But I think I'd hope that because it, you know, they own it directly, and there's not like a sort of game of as much of a game as of telephone, right?
Yes.
That within the company they can be a lot more, I guess, patient and
Yes.
willing to kind of like get that done, and aren't kind of under maybe like the same
restrictions
that
or
might be a bit
pressures,
disconnected, you know, but it is kind of just guessing. Like we don't know
Yeah,
exactly the
of
relationship
course.
between companies
Yeah,
and
just
stuff.
just in relation to, you know, their prior history is where all of this, you know, everything that I'm saying is coming from, right? And it's so difficult to actually narrow things down, and once again, there is a ton of nuance as there is with everything that exists within our mortal coil, dude. But it is extremely, extremely exciting going forward, and just the future of From Software in general, dude. You know, with the success of Elden Ring baseline, all of that stuff. But it's also extremely scary too because of Elden Ring success. A lot of fucking bigger companies, they're like, ooh, I want to grab a piece of that pie. Hence, Tencent, you know, buying fucking stock in Katakawa. You know what I mean? And that's incredibly fucking scary. Same with Sony, right? And yeah, it's a very scary but very exciting time for From Software's future overall. Yeah, but based on what we've seen with the DLC alone, dude, oh boy, this looks insane.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of content, and
Yeah.
whatever. Even I'm going in with low expectations for, like, you know, the long term or like the competitive value or like,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
the other music. But I'm like, it's clear that it's going to be a really good time, like just like
Yes.
the release was for all of, you know.
Yeah, and like from all of the impressions too and stuff that I've listened to and the articles that I've read, it's like everybody is just without a doubt saying that this is the greatest piece of expansive content that From has ever done, which is an incredibly high bar too. You know what I mean? That's crazy high praise. So, you know, potentially Shadow of the Erdtree is going to dethrone Bloodborne's DLC as being the best piece of DLC that they've ever done. So That's
Such a high
so
bar.
crazy. Yeah, dude, insanely high. Let
Now,
me catch
like,
up on chat for a sec. I don't mean to cut you off. You can say what you need to say too. I'm just gonna
um,
read
yeah,
through
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I was just gonna say, like, just by other aspects alone, it may like out, outdo what is it? The Bloodborne DLC, Gold Hunters. But
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that they also outdo it in the like the boss aspects of it,
Oh,
right?
I know, I know. Well,
Mm-hmm.
and once again, like I talked about this yesterday on stream, where historically, and Miyazaki has expressed this in, ironically, the interview that one of the interviews that he did for Bloodborne's DLC. He mentioned that what they try to do as a company with their DLCs is they try to intake all of the prevalent feedback, and the problems, I guess, that and complaints that people have within the base game of each respective game, and then they try to actively lessen all of those complaints. You know what I mean? Address all of them and make
Mm-hmm.
them not as troublesome or cumbersome in each
Mm-hmm.
game's respective DLC. And we're already starting to see that too in Elden Ring, with, some of people's mainline complaints being like, the big open, empty open field areas, right?
With
Like
repetitive
that's,
enemies
yeah, right, yeah,
and
etc., right? So, and it's like there's like such a gap at sometimes, like when you're exploring in the open field where there's not just much going on, right? And that's where
Mhm.
the difference in level design approach with the DLC itself, they are, and Miyazaki said this explicitly, I believe. It was like there's more of a seamless transition between open field and mini dungeons, legacies, and medium-sized dungeons specifically, right? And there's going to be more density in the open field areas in particular, right? And that's, once again, that's just them addressing that immediately and using that as a core design pillar, because they do intake all of that feedback, you know what I mean? And that's just, it's fucking awesome to see, dude. And one thing that I wanted to mention on top of that too is in the Bloodborne DLC interview that I referenced, the example of that was one of the biggest complaints in Bloodborne's base game was that there's not a lot of weapons. And in the DLC, they added more weapons than was in the game baseline, just within the DLC, right? And that's another example of them doing that, right? Addressing that player feedback and just giving back twice over kind of thing, right? Um okay, let's see. Chat here. I'm pretty behind. Holy shit, I'm extremely behind, dude.
Oh, by
Oh
the way, what
no.
is the chicken pickled neck thing? Is it that like your last stream?
Yeah. That is a that's a last stream moment. That is hour 10 of the last stream where I was extremely sleep deprived and getting delirious hardcore. And we went on a hour and a half rant about
Ow!
how that fits into the overall lore
What?
of the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. Needless to say, we cracked the entire story of the DLC. That is where that's coming from. I'm glad you asked.
You guys,
Was
you
wondering,
guys must have had way too much fun with that. Like, there's no way it could be this funny.
dude, I would definitely recommend checking out the last hour and a half of my last live stream, the VOD, because it's truly something, dude. We had G9 in there pitching into the overall theory, everything, dude. It was fire.
Oh my God.
Truly unparalleled. Alright, so what are people saying here? But yeah, on day one patches, i.e. I've seen people aware of mechanics and on point with changes even prior to patch notes. Yes, indeed, MVC. Yeah, and like, once again, that with the feedback videos that we submitted, that we got direct confirmation that From Software actually did receive, at least, regardless of what we end up getting in the, like from our feedback in the DLC pre-patch, it's like, even if they do, like, even one or two of the things that we, like suggested, that's a massive W, and it's honestly game changing, depending on what they decide to do, whether they focus more on the multiplayer based improvements in general. That's incredible. or they look into, you know, the more detailed frame data set video that we made, you know, and how to make particular improvements to the PvP side of the game, that's also incredibly exciting as well, you know. The throwable seems to be fun PvE and not that good in PvP. I don't know, dude, like the throwing daggers specifically, they seem like they're gonna be pretty damn good. And we should definitely break those down at some point too, dude.
Also,
Yeah, go on.
can I respond to Black Sheep?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Unfortunately, you probably are not gonna be seeing as much as of me as you'd like for the early, at least the early DLC. It might be a while. I have some, what is it, issues with my hands that kind of make it like impossible to work. So
Oh shit.
yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, but I'm kind of just trying to like chill through it, because it does suck to kind of miss out, but like, it's better, like make sure they heal, and
Yeah.
because losing them for a lifetime, or like losing their ability for a lifetime, is kind of like not
Yeah.
worth, kind of like, you know but
Yeah.
yeah, sorry,
Well,
sorry to like take it to like
no,
a
no, no, of course. Like, no, I'm sorry to hear about that, dude. I had no idea. That really fucking sucks.
yeah.
Jeez. Is it
But
like carpal tunnel related?
yeah, it could be a lot of things. they
Oh,
they still
okay.
don't know yet.
Gotcha,
And
gotcha.
also healthcare here in Canada, like,
Hmm.
well, it's definitely better than the US so
Yeah.
far. It's
Yeah.
like the wait times are just so silly. I like I was able to see someone for it just to like, take a look at it, but they weren't able to like tell what it was, and were
Yeah,
just able
fully
to like put in the
diagnose it.
pills or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't be able to see someone until late July, like an actual like occupational therapist. So
Oh,
it's
jeez.
like it's kind of ridiculous, but I'm kind of just taking trying to take like normal precautions
Yeah.
or whatever with it.
Yeah,
But
no, that's definitely the safe route. Well, dude, I mean, I hope everything works out in that regard, and I hope it's not you know, like a fucking what's the word I'm looking for? Like chronic, you know what I mean? And I hope you can get recovered as much as can be.
mhm,
Because I deal with my
yeah,
own health related issues, and you know,
yeah,
it's fucking it's tough sometimes, but you know, you gotta keep on keeping on and push on through,
mhm.
you know.
Yeah,
Um,
and like definitely, telling people about this definitely revealed to me like actually how like common even these specific issues with my hands are, and also just chronic pain and other issues in
yeah,
general.
yeah,
Like, yeah, I think I've had quite a bit of time, being young and never really having to worry about health issues. So
right,
like, it's kind of like, yeah, the crazy thing about it. But
yeah,
um other than that, like it's yeah, it could be just a lot of things. Could be repetitive strain injury, carpal
yeah,
tunnel tunnel,
gotcha,
fucking trigger finger. It's unclear, but I'm just kind of
gotcha.
like doing whatever's good for all of them.
Yeah, of course, of course. No, definitely taking the right precautions is the best route to go.
It's also why like being able to do calls like this and whenever are pretty nice,
Yeah.
because I don't really need to use my hands too much.
Well, right, exactly, dude. You know, and obviously you're extremely knowledgeable about all things like this, dude. Like way, way, way further above and beyond anything that I could provide, right? As to the actual like breakdown and nuance of this stuff. So, you being here
Yeah,
and taking the time is immensely appreciated, and I know everybody in the chat appreciates it as well, dude. So, it's a
yeah, of
pleasure to
course.
have you.
It's really fun, and
Yeah.
I'm glad. I've been mostly like avoiding the DLC stuff so far, because
Mm-hmm.
uh I just knew I was gonna get like kind of fixated on it a bit, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but
That's fair. It's gonna
it's
pull you back in, dude. Yeah.
it's fun to actually like look at it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm
Um,
just hoping to be chill with that, because it's
yeah.
really easy to get like the fear of missing out with this stuff and
Oh
whatever.
yeah, dude, the FOMO is so real for sure. But at the same time too, it's like, you know, going in blind for From Software's experiences are always truly unparalleled too. So it's like
Yeah.
it's no shame in the game no matter what, you know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
but yeah, no, like that was the thing that I kind of discussed like last stream too, because you know I had just like a couple people come in and being like, oh, you know, like the spoilers, you know, and it's like there's always that big discrepancy as to because it's very person to person based on, you know, what
Yeah.
people consider to be an actual spoiler or not. So that's when I had to
Yeah.
I just thought it was appropriate to put in, you know, DLC spoilers in the title and stuff like that because it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I want to be as respectful as I
Mhm.
can to people actually wanting to go blackout, you know what I mean? On
Mhm.
from software related stuff. So yeah, no, I would like to be able to go in completely blind, but I'm such a massive fan of From Software. I can't resist, dude. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I wish I could.
Not gonna lie, fucking like thinking about playing the DLC, I feel like it sucks because I'm not even sure if my hands will be in good enough state to
Mm-hmm.
even be able to play it. And if I do, I'm gonna have to do it with like something that's as gentle as possible. Maybe
Is
controller would be fine because I won't
yeah,
have the
controller.
USB.
Yeah, I was just gonna offer that as a possibility because maybe that wouldn't be as intensive. Um,
Like, I definitely feel like my ring and pinky fingers are like the most vulnerable, but if I also text excessively on my phone, then it also
mm,
flares up there, or even use those other fingers. But
gotcha.
I feel like controller could definitely be most gentle. And in this game, like thankfully, is as much as people like to say it with like mashing whatever, it's like
Right.
it doesn't compare to
Oh no,
games
dude.
where you actually have like need really fast like RPM or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, you can be pretty gentle with it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I hope you're in a stable enough spot in that regard to be able to yeah at least game on the inferior controller, dude. Yes.
I remember deliberately actually playing Elden Ring my first playthrough on the controller, despite always being a keyboard main after before that.
Oh yeah,
I don't
gotcha,
know.
gotcha.
I thought like maybe I
It's
guess I
just
want the developer's intended experience or something like that. You know?
yeah. And it is like using a controller is just more, you know, it's more
Comfy.
lax. Yeah, it's just more comfy. Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, that'd be good, dude. Because it'd be a shame, you know, not being able to experience it with the rest of the community. You know what I mean? Because that's something honestly that's worth mentioning just in general that a launch of something from software related is so like profound. You know what I mean? Like because
Hmm.
the community is all experiencing all of these things simultaneously, you know, and just once again because of the you can't really say like difficulty because it's like, you know, it's a whole argument, right? But from software's games are challenging. You know what I mean? Especially a challenging based gaming experience. It really helps to have the entire community experiencing it together because it
Yeah.
builds kind of that community aspect and that really extremely like passionate community aspect too because players are constantly looking out and trying to help one another, you know what I mean, too, which
Yeah.
is
I
really
mean,
cool.
like literally, if you read like any interview, you
Hmm.
see how Miyazaki and others specifically mention how the community outside the game is
Yeah.
almost intended to be part of the experience. Like they're intending people
Yes.
to do that and like learn from each other and get interested in the game through each
Exactly.
other, want to try different
Yeah.
things. Like you're not technically intended to go in completely blind or strict yourself to completely blind, right?
Exactly. Right. It's the whole
And
principle of the asynchronous multiplayer system that they designed, you know, with like the messaging system for fuck's sake. You know, they even
mhm.
took that philosophy from outside the game. They share that same principle, but they even implemented it into the game in certain ways too. So,
What's
yeah.
really interesting actually is how like you see even with how bare bones like the multiplayer in this game has been like almost like insultingly like just massacred compared to its like former self and how integrated it was with like the RPG game or whatever like
Yeah.
PS1 DS2
Mhm.
like even then like people that are new to the series like find the multiplayer just like absolutely like addicting and interesting and
Yes.
like just like
Yes.
enhancing the experience and it literally is just because that is such a good formula in
It
combination with the
is.
game,
It
right?
is. Yeah.
Like it even goes back to just like even the more basic things like messages and ghosts and whatever, right?
Mhm.
Actually, if you go back to like even I think was it like IGN or some other like game journalist
Mm-hmm.
back in when Demon Souls came
I
out.
know
I
exactly what
think
you're talking about. Yep.
they needed their game of the year or something, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically, I don't know if it was the first or just one of the biggest points, but they mentioned the
Yep.
multiplayer aspect and or the online aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that
And
was their highest praise point of anything in the game. Yep.
it's like crazy to me because like we look at it now and take it like for granted,
I know.
whereas if it's like
Mm-hmm. I talk about this all the time, especially when, like, a lot of the invasion side of the community was really looking forward to Lords of the Fallen, the remake that they did, because it had, like, similar systems to Souls, right? But
yeah.
Lords of the Fallen completely dropped the ball with the way that they implemented their multiplayer system, in that they made it host side priority or whatever the fuck, right? To where
Yeah, one-sided
yes,
latency.
yes, exactly. And then everybody that was excited for it after experiencing that, they were like, "Oh my actual god." And they dropped it. You know what I mean? And it's like that should give folks a way bigger and deeper appreciation for what From Software has actually done. And like you take a studio that released that game in 2023, and their attempt at that multiplayer system was worse than what From Software did upon conception back in 2009. Like that should speak volumes, you know what I mean? As to From Software's prowess and how they actually approach implementation of these extremely complex systems. And
Uh-huh.
regardless of, and once again, a lot of the multiplayer based criticism is valid, and I'm not saying to ignore that by any means, you know what I mean? Because there are problems with the way that From Software has done their systems in the past, right? But despite all of that, just looking at the core system functionality and all of that and what they've been able to achieve, and this even supersedes all of that too and goes directly into Elden Ring. And I know I've mentioned this before, but genuinely, and I'm not fucking around here when I say this, we're lucky that we even have multiplayer in Elden Ring baseline, because what other open world action RPG has had that's released in the past 20 years has had multiplayer in it? I'll tell you how many. Exactly 0. And we, as fans of From Software, we just assumed that it was going to, and we took that for granted massively. From Software literally did something that has never been done before in in the open world genre, literally, and that is fucking insane. So, it just, once again, it supersedes and builds upon itself even more. The more and more we talk about this, it's just From are masters at what they do. And that doesn't mean that they can't improve, because they most certainly can, and they prove it time and time again with their iterative design philosophy, right? But
Yeah, it's like
it's
you can
crazy.
take a look at their entire product, right? Or pieces of the recipe that are
Mm-hmm.
like kind of problematic or flawed or whatever, right?
Yep.
But when anybody else tries to like bake this kind of game, it doesn't come out the same, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. It's insane, dude. Yeah, the amount of prowess that they have. It's just reinforced by all of the other studios, to your point, that are trying to mimic the same formula. Yeah. Yep. Oh boy, I've done it again. I've fallen 8,000 messages behind on chat. We might have to just
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah,
roll with it. I'm sorry for all the stuff that we didn't get to, guys, but I'm just gonna kind of
yeah,
try and keep up with chat at this point. So
yeah. For the most part, I think I like missed just until now, and I did in the chat
mm.
like thanking people for their like
Oh yeah,
nice
yeah,
messages or whatever.
yeah, dude. Yeah, we appreciate all the wholesome comments, dude. Much
Mm.
love, shoutouts. Zeus in chat just said 24-hour live stream. I don't know about that. So unfortunately, I do have to go at probably around like 3-ish. I'll probably have to end the stream because I do have a dental appointment. Damn
That's
you, dentist, dude, for ruining it. I would love
wait,
to be able to do another 11-hour stream, but no, we can keep on going for a while yet. But
Is that like an hour too? I don't know time
I'm
standard thing.
yeah, I'm CST, so I'll probably have to end in about 40 minutes here.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, like my voice was definitely getting tired, so
Oh,
we
no
can
problem.
definitely like just like look at see what we missed, what we
Yeah,
can.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um.
I would say that the throwing daggers, if we're gonna break down just more weapons specifically, the pure throwing daggers and the perfume are probably the two that I would like
Oh
to
yeah.
the
Here,
most that I would like to take a look at.
let's look at the perfume first.
Yeah, for sure.
However, yeah, I just want to like tangent too.
Hmm.
Um, another thing, just even if my hands get better, because like I just also just been on a big YouTube hiatus for a while,
Yeah.
just because
Hmm.
IRL stuff, and if I do like come back to making content or whatever, it's gonna be when I have like a good and comfortable workflow from it.
Yeah, fair.
And yeah, for the most part, like I realized that I probably shouldn't make really promises about it too much because like I don't think I'm actually at that like um level of kind of like discipline or whatever, or just like workflow or whatever, that I could just kind of like kind of chug through that. And the way my content is something that's kind of like hard to also just like force. It's kind of like necessarily a bit like hyperfixaty and stuff like that. So like uh I can't really make too many promises with that, but when I do
Yeah.
come back, it it, it is probably going to be um mostly stuff I'm interested in talking about. So it may be even quite a while after the
Hmm.
DLC comes out, but
Yep.
and even though that kind of like sucks to miss out on, like when I actually started doing YouTube stuff, it was like way after DS3 was like irrelevant, but the Souls audience is always there. So like,
Yes, exactly.
I
Yeah.
think people will appreciate it
Well,
regardless.
yeah, and you always have something extremely valuable to say and offer and bring to the table too. With your extremely
Mhm.
detailed approach and breakdown to all of these convoluted ass mechanics, dude.
Mhm.
So,
I think also like since I last was like active, I guess like when I was like actually posting videos relatively often,
hmm.
I think definitely my like perspective has evolved a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of understanding of, you know, games in general in the competitive sense, just games in general. Like, um, I just feel my perspective is a bit more um whole a bit, that I could actually cover like already. Like people often like compliment me on like how my videos seem to be like cover everything and whatever, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like looking back, like it definitely could be better. um but so I definitely think I could even do better, and I am like looking forward to that. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
also
No.
the other problem.
Well,
It's
yeah.
so perfectionist.
Yeah. It's just kind of to your point too. It's. I mean, ideally, we should all be looking to improve ourselves, and the fact that you can look back on that and be like, hey, like I can improve this. That's a fucking awesome attitude to have, especially towards
Mhm,
content creation, but even larger, just implementation in everyday life. I think that's a good goal. You
mhm.
know what I mean? It's just to be
Yeah,
constantly moving forward, constantly looking to find out, improve your knowledge on things, and just improve yourself as a person, dude. That's
yeah, yeah.
awesome. In Also, in relation to, damn it, I just forgot what I was gonna say. Fuck. Shit. Damn it, I hate that, dude. My brain. Ugh. Dude, it's weird for me because like the way that my brain functions, I it's very like I don't think about too much, you know what I mean, baseline. But when it's something that I actually do care about, my brain is just like fast track firing, on all cylinders, 1,000 miles a minute, and like
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
not used to that all the time because usually my brain is just fucking blank, dude. Like nothing's going through it ever. So yeah, I think that's a large reason why I tend to forget a lot of times when I'm getting all hyped up and extremely passionate about these things, but I'm sure it'll
Yeah.
come up later. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one thing that I did want to look at, Egwo said, "What do you think about A053 having a frame 9 CR1? That is the purely throwing daggers because it mirrors. We're gonna get into that when we break down the throwing daggers here, but I think it being frame 9 is completely fine, because even if the animation itself of like actually throwing the dagger is frame 9, you got to take into account the actual projectile travel distance too. So like even though it's frame 9, it's going to be fully reactable regardless, guaranteed.
And also the hitbox is likely to be very thin. And...
Yes, extremely. Very strafable, all of that. And also I want to put this up front before we dive into it specifically. In one of the articles, they mentioned the actual design and functionality of how the purely thrown throwing daggers work, is that they have a limited range with every single base moveset attack, so like the neutral R1s. So, and they equated it to about the similar in range to whip, right? So they actually designed the throwing knives to be played actually in the pocket, to where you can't just fucking sit back from 1,000 miles away at max lock-on range distance and just pelt people away, right? So they actually do have a limited amount of range associated with them, which I think is a great way to balance a weapon like that, especially with no, like, consumable or resource, you know, associated with it, to where it's just infinite. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, that makes like a lot more sense than, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it actually.
It's right here, right before this, right before it shows the dried leaf arts.
What?
It's like when he casts the gravitational spell, like while the gravity spell is active.
This particular video that was posted by.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay,
okay.
Right
So
here.
it's out of order. Yeah.
So
we see four R1s there, and all four of those, frame data wise, match identically to the two-handed R1 chain in that we see of A053, by the way.
53.
Yep. The thrown timings, R1 number 4 throwing them identically at the exact same time, R1 3 throwing them very closely together, and then R1 2 and R1 1 being relatively spaced out. So that's exactly what we're seeing there, is the two-handed R1 chain all the way up to R1 number 4, but there is actually an extension of R1 number 5 and R1 number 6, because it is a 6-chain R1, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we kind of already have all of the frame data for, you know, the purely thrown throwing daggers, so I mean, it's probably, like you said, you know, starting on the perfume is probably more applicable, but just because we have that. Also, the perfume weapon, I believe we have the frame data associated with that, too. An early version of it. It's A056. 56, I believe.
Okay. Two-hand running R2. Yeah, I think that's like the... Wait, that doesn't look right. That looks like a... Yeah, it looks... Yeah, early version must be right, because...
Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? Like, pull it up on the screen share. Because, like, it makes sense, honestly, after seeing the way the perfume attacks are. Because there's, like, on the neutral R1, for example, there's 6 bullets associated with it. And that potentially means that that's how they're designing the attacks, right? Is like, it's multiple different, like, exploding projectiles, like when you throw the perfume itself, and it could end up functioning one of two ways, I think. It could be similar to if any one of those, like, bullets comes in contact with your character, that just, you take all of the damage up front, kind of like Flame Strike, but if you get hit by, you know, if, like, you roll one of them, then all of the other ones are invalidated, just like Flame Strike's multiple active frames, right?
On if they share, like, if they share the hit, right?
Yes, exactly. And even then, there's another avenue of it where this could potentially be the case. Pull up the one-handed R1 on the perfume, because that's more in line. It's easier to understand. So, like, because they're more spaced like that, that looks like the perfume actually drifting out and covering a certain amount of distance. You see what I mean?
We see this, right?
Yes, we see the one-handed neutral R1s. That's exactly what we see. We see
And
all
it's like a
4 in the
blue
chain
one.
too. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like the chilling mist based perfume. Yep.
Comes out really fast too. I wonder if like the projectile travel time would limit
Well,
it.
one thing that I want to point out too is that it has pretty significant dodge recovery too, right? On the
Yeah.
first one, which is very interesting, and then it gets less and less as you go further in the R1 chain. But like that recovery, that's 1 frame higher in recovery from the last bullet coming out to dodge than a greatsword R1 in the
Hmm.
base game. Which once again, that's the crux of the perfume, because I know like everybody's up in arms about the perfume weapon type and they're like, that's gonna be so fucking broken. So like I'm trying
Yeah.
to look actively for things that keep it in check, you know what I mean? And high recovery definitely does keep it in check, right?
Yeah, like the fucking curve, I guess, of the cancel windows definitely looks like it would be limited a bit by that, but
Yeah,
it really depends, I think, almost entirely on how the bullets
I agree.
function.
I agree. Yes.
Um, like, cause where is this? Was it back here? No, I think it's later here.
Yeah, yeah, and just like you, sir, pointed out in chat, the range is very limited on the perfume, which is another thing to keep it in check too. And we see that when they're casting the chilling mist based one.
Mhm.
It's pretty low range wise for like at least the neutral attacks, you know. And
Mhm.
also one thing that I wanted to point out with this too, because this is a very real potentiality. So going off of what we see in the base game, right? The only equivalency to potentially what this weapon type is going to function like, right? Obviously, it's a little bit different in the structure because of the multiple bullets, how they designed it there. But if you look at like the spark aromatic, for example, right? That is 1 active hitbox, just 1, right? But it does have that lingering aspect to it, right? It's very similar in functionality to how Flame Strike works, right?
Mhm.
Where it keeps that hitbox in place until you come in contact with it for a limited amount of time. So what I was looking at, because people are very concerned about the amount of poise damage that this is going to do too, right?
Mhm.
So if you take into account like the spark aromatic, which is the only offensive damage, like actual upfront damage dealing perfume that we have in the base game, that does 50 poise damage currently on patch 1.10. Okay, so if you take that into account and you look at like the neutral R1 one-handed that we see, the frame data that we see right here, the fact that it's separated into 6 projectiles, and if you assign each one of those bullets 10, that's 60, right? So even then, and that's being pretty generous, I feel like, if it's functioning in such a way where you can individually come in contact with each one of those bullets, and it's not functioning the way that like Spark Aromatic does, or Flame Strike, for example, to where you can actually, like, say you come into contact with it late and you only get hit by those last 3 on the neutral one-handed R1, right? Like right here. Potentially what that means is that each bullet has like an assigned value of like 80 damage or something like that, and 10 poise damage associated with each one. So it's like the perfume potentially is only going to hit hard if you actually get hit by all 6 of those bullets that we're seeing here too. So that's another possibility of how it could potentially function, you know? What do you think about those couple potentialities?
Um, like looking at the footage, it's hard to see a bit, but I feel like it's most likely going to be how like the existing aromatic works, because like look how the like the PvE reacts, right?
Okay.
Do this, floats over, stun, looks like they're still in the same hit stun animation. Like and even though these are exploding over here, like I don't think it means like it's individual.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
think that this, once again, this is the Ash of War that we're seeing right there. That was confirmed by UI.
Oh, it gets knocked back. Maybe it does have like 2 ticks.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's 2 separate. That's like 2 overlapping spark aromatics is what that looks like there, and it looks like the mob is only getting hit twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, like, I guess it could be just 1 HP here, but like it would make more sense that it like does the full damage up front because it dies immediately, but it could just be
Right,
coincidence.
right, 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 right.
But this is also, yeah, like this, I'm guessing caught people's ire because like it looks like literally like a 10 frame running attack.
Yeah, I
It
know
has
the
sides.
and once again, this if you pull up the running R2, I know the running R2 is extremely unfinished, but in the frame data that we currently have, but that looks akin to the amount of bullets that we're seeing with the running R2 attacks. Especially because
Yeah,
like the two-handed running R2 has 28 bullets tied to it, and that looks like it would have something akin to like over 20 bullets if it, is associated that way. And once again, okay, let me quell some fear here too. And if it does take the current design of how the spark aromatic works and flame strike, for example, more closely associated obviously with the spark aromatic itself, but if like you late roll this and you avoid all of the other potential hitboxes like you do with flame strike or spark aromatic in the game currently, then you just absolutely fucked over the person using perfume there. Literally, because they're locked into the rest of that entire lengthy animation with heavy recovery, so you can just
yeah.
late roll and then backstab that. Like,
It really depends because like latency actually comes kind of in clutch here and
yeah,
in the limiting factor because like Spark Aromatic actually one of the main things that limit it from being good is because people can just phantom hit it
exactly.
like reactively
Yes, yep.
and then just negate the entire thing, right? They can just keep in your face.
Yes,
Same thing
yes.
with Flaming Strike, but since Flaming Strike has like more realistic
Yeah,
mix-ups with other things, then
yeah.
it's like,
And
yeah, not as
also
easy.
dealing fucking type 2 hit stun, which is something that, like, nobody's taking into account with this weapon either. Like, presumably, the perfume weapon class is going to have little to no fucking poise damage that it does to people, unless you
I
get hit by
assume
multiple
so.
ticks, you know what I mean? And from, like Egwo said, I heard that the perfume does absolutely awful stance damage from testers. And granted, that is in a PvE setting, and those values are directly, completely not correlated, right? Am I right in that?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it could be scaled, right? But I
Right.
assume they start with
But
it not scaled.
exactly, right. So, like, being that it functions that way in PvE, that like almost confirms to me that From Software is aware of what they're creating here and they don't want it to be so fucking egregious, right? That they equalized it in giving it decently high recovery and making it deal absolutely no stance damage, right?
Yeah,
And that just makes sense for something that's literally igniting the air. You know? Like, hello?
it feels way more likely that yeah, you're right about that they neutered it somehow. And also here, like it may look like it applies like tier 2 his son, and maybe it does on the weapon art, but
Right.
this is also the like fire burning animation of this PvE animation. Some enemies are
Exactly.
weak to fire, so
Right.
it doesn't matter. I don't think the damage level.
That's a
of your
really good
attack.
point. Yes, actually.
They just
Yeah.
freak out if you hit them
Every
with
single
fire.
time. Yes, exactly. So that's really interesting. So yeah,
Yeah.
once again, all of these kind of compounding factors here that are potentially the case, Obviously it's all just speculation at this point, but I would lean more on the side of perfume actually being more so just like a knowledge check in PvP than anything, genuinely.
Yeah. It would be
And
cool
it's still
if it
going to
has,
be
like,
good,
fun
but
utility.
yeah, it's still going to be good, but like the initial like shock and awe factor, you know what I mean, that everybody's up in arms about right now, it's like potentially that's not going to be as egregious as it looks with implementation,
Mhm.
So
Can you imagine what is it like getting a knockdown on someone and then just like
I
hard swapping
know.
to this?
I know. Yeah. Well, that's a big point of contention too that people have mentioned. It's like if you get a BS, it's like, is that inescapable? Is that going to be unavoidable? Right?
It really
Because
depends. It really depends on like if
yeah,
these hitboxes, how many of these hitboxes share like a register slot with each other,
exactly. Once again, if you're able to just roll one that comes in contact with you properly, then it avoids everything else. Then it's like, well, fuck, dude, that's fine,
Yeah, generally, I feel like there's so many ways for something that looks like a frame trap nightmare thing to actually be negated when it comes
Exactly.
most of the time.
Yeah. Well, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but from my experience, there is not a single reliable or like guaranteed wake up that exists within the game right now. And there's 308 weapons, right? In the base game.
Um,
And the fact that is something that exists, I don't see, like, and even if this is like the sole only reliable way of guaranteeing damage off of a wake up of like a backstab or a riposte, it's like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
It really depends, because like the game, because of the 20 iframe rule or whatever, in a lot of cases, it seems to mostly neuter the ability
Yeah, yeah, the wake up
wake-ups, but
roll. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
there is some things that don't have it, like a Footzilla, a player, an NA player,
Yep.
In 2v2s, but also like the 1v1 tourney was showing really well with what is it, this tech with Gugs, where if you would jump, and if you jump late enough versus the running R2, its knockdown on you will actually put you into a wake up that you can't do the like the quick and like really
Oh,
meaty roll
gotcha.
with,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And it actually has a really nice 50-50 with like Gug's off sham, where either you roll immediately and then
Mm-hmm.
get caught by a running R1 with the
Yes.
Gugs,
Yep.
or you wait and then he gets guaranteed backswing with the
Yes, exactly.
Hampshire.
Dude, can I just say how devious of a cook that setup is? That is like
Mm-hmm.
some of the best main hand offhand synergy that I have ever seen in Elden Ring. And it's so fucking awesome to see somebody going out there and trying to, theory craft something like that, dude, because that's like the essence of my being, is trying to find interactions like that, So it's awesome to
Yeah.
see somebody else bring something like that into the comp scene and do extremely well with it, So
And
sick.
yeah, and I hope there's more things like that. I think
Mm-hmm.
Foots has always just been like a really good player in DS3 and really good at like cooking off meta stuff or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like, like I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
surprised at all that when he started like actually playing this game properly,
Mm-hmm.
that he came up with all that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really cool
yeah.
to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
I
Ah,
can't exactly show you. It's kind of hard to like, unless you've seen it, it's hard to like explain. But
no,
yeah,
I
it's
know
just
what you mean.
after hitting a running R2. Chatter was just asking what interaction is, but after
Mm-hmm.
you hit with a running R2 on
Oh,
a
gotcha.
Colossus sword, then the other player gets knocked down, and as they're standing up, they have to choose between rolling immediately to avoid a guaranteed backswing if they run up and do two Shamshir L1s. But if you roll immediately, you get caught by them doing
Mm-hmm.
a running uh, colossal sword attack. So,
Yep, yep, yep. And
um,
that's like all throughout its moveset too. It has so many things like that, like interactions within that setup. It's so good.
yep, it's really nice. But yeah, I think that's the Spark stuff I
Yeah.
covered.
Well, we didn't look at the neutral R1s of the cold one
Hmm. See,
when they were doing that.
I don't know if they have it in this video. Do you have a
Oh,
link to
really?
one that does show it?
I mean, Vati's videos, it's the first 14 minutes are all in order of everything.
Hmm. I can
So,
download that.
yeah, that's
Hmm.
probably the best one to actually like run through because everything is as it's shown, and there's no
Okay.
like cutting.
I'll what is it? I probably like we could probably do that like on a different call or something,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Maybe
that
be a
that
night
sounds
to like stay
perfect.
for them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, guys, there very well could be a follow-up stream with yours truly and Amirah, dude. So definitely look forward to that. Hold on one second here. Let me catch up with chat. What do you think the weight will be for the perfume weapons? I'm guessing between 2 and 0 Miyazaki's, dude. That's a very good guess. Better than I could potentially come up with myself, I'm sure, dude.
Mhm.
Poison. See, and here's the other thing. Yeah, Medios, he provided this, like, just poise through it with passive poise and then backstab the perfume. You know what I mean? If it does low poise damage and has high recovery, it's like that's. And once again,
Yeah.
just like a weapon type like whip is fucking incredible against like meta setups and things like that, like the super fast weapons that, show up constantly in the meta, it is completely obliterated by anything hyper armor. Like you may as well just throw up your hands and, like take your hands off your
Mhm.
controller and just quit. if you're
The,
a whip
the,
main
it,
against
it
hyper
tends to
armor.
be that if there's like kind of like a off meta gem that actually can make it really difficult for a traditionally very oppressive meta setup,
Mm-hmm.
there's usually another meta setup that
Yes.
like completely stomps it because it
Yes.
counteracts those things, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Um, like fists or the
Mm-hmm.
shunter in some cases. Yeah, it really depends.
Yeah. 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 And even then, like whip can do really well against even Starfist if you play decently
Yeah,
safe.
if they have your jumps, then
Yeah.
and
That's fair. That is fair.
Mhm.
Okay. So what else here? Okay, soft swap and every build, so good. Let's see. What if we get Poison Mist Perfume Weapon? It inflicts poison spray mist. As far as I know, I've only been told this because I haven't finished the full Vati video, but somebody told me that Vati found a poison spray mist based version of what we're seeing in the trailer, just like we see an alteration between the Spark version and the cold version. I believe it's confirmed that there is a poison mist based one too. And when someone dropped that in the chat, I was freaking out because literally that's confirmed to scale with fucking Arcane, guaranteed. And I'm an Arcane main, and literally my favorite fucking thing in Elden Ring is the concept of perfumes. And that's why the
Mm.
Spark Aromatic is literally my favorite thing that they've ever done. And specifically in Elden Ring at least, right? And I was always like theory crafting. I was always like, dude, why didn't they give the perfume bottle like augmented sprinting based attacks and shit like that? You know what I mean? Like we see the perfumers actually do in the base game. And I was always so disappointed at that. But lo and behold, they took that entire idea and made it a reality. So literally my dream and what I've been speculating about them doing for the longest time, ever since launch, they actually did it, and they gave Arcane a poison full moveset perfume, dude. That's so incredible.
That might be crazy. However,
I'm so
one
hyped.
thing
Mm-hmm.
I really want to know more about, and I like if anybody heard any information from any of the people who got to play it, if is there any like system changes they noticed? And by this I mean I'm talking about like voice damage
Mm-hmm.
or like just scaling or I don't know how stats or work or
Right,
whatever. Like
yeah.
there's stuff that we might just
Well,
like that we'll probably know in the like pre DLC patch or whatever,
yes,
right?
exactly. And I think once again, I think they've done a shit ton of work to the base game in preparation for this, you know what I mean, in terms of like how things function in that way. Baseline, granted, that's just my speculation, but something that points towards that is in Ouroboros' video, he talks about that like it's not something that's like mechanical like directly, right? But it kind of just points to the fact that From is making other changes outside of just the game itself too. He mentioned that they changed the white blinding just startup screen, splash screen of Bandai Namco's logo, and they changed it to a black background, dude. And then he also mentioned
Oh,
that they added a quality of life feature into the baseline game within your inventory that is a new or recently acquired item tab, and it has like uh, a yellow exclamation point over it when you get something new. So like like that's insane to me, right? That they're adding like significant like additions in that regard, quality of life wise too. And that's not
mhm.
really something that we've ever seen in like a DLC, right? At least as far as back as I can
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. I feel like there probably was in some degrees, but it feels like Elden Ring definitely with even just system changes has definitely done things that previous games have not, but there's still like so much like the
Mm-hmm.
wish list for like quality of life
Oh
upgraders
yeah.
is like so much larger than we could imagine like from stuff
Yeah.
would actually,
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
oh like
Definitely.
you think about like how many years it took them to do some of these like even just the item some form of item sorting in the inventory.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? Yes, but we did get there, and they are learning, albeit very slowly, right? In
Mm-hmm.
certain avenues of their games. But no, like
Mm-hmm.
it was really cool to hear that they did something like that. You know, that was something. And once again, what also falls in line with that, and this is like almost Elden Ring exclusive, right? Is like the PvP separation damage scaling. Like all of that, the separate PvP balancing system that they
Yeah.
created. You know what I mean? Like, and once again, them implementing Wex Dust, like all of those things are foreign when you're talking about the previous games that they've done. And
Mm-hmm.
Elden Ring goes above and beyond in so many facets, and we've seen a lot of that just based on the patches that they've already done, you know? They've done so much work. So, and once again, I hearken back to the quote of Miyazaki and the head of Bandai Namco when they said, "We plan on supporting Elden Ring for longer than any of our previous games." So,
I
I don't
really
know.
hope they do
Yeah, same.
because like one part of what is it? Just like my whole hiatus and also like the fact that my hiatus is definitely going to continue for a bit
Mm-hmm.
is kind of where it kind of feels like that the game might get to a stage of support where it's less and less likely to get a lot of these fixes that we could get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I always had kind of like low expectations for these things, but I kind of made a mistake of having unbelievably high standards for myself in terms of like you know, getting this kind of feedback stuff out. Like you guys were aware of like the big feedback website and projects and
Oh
stuff
yeah, of
before
course.
that,
Yes. Yep. Yep.
I've unfortunately been, you know, like finished
Mm-hmm.
after, we weren't able to
Yeah,
maintain it.
discontinue. Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
of the
I mean,
Well,
we,
it's
we
a
still
lot of
did really
upkeep.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were still able to do quite a bit with
Well,
that,
yeah,
right?
and a lot
I'm
of
glad
that
that.
was directly implemented too, dude, you know, so
Hmm.
that's a W in and of itself. And that's
Yeah.
what, the project that Gabri and I and a bunch of other content creators, with those two feedback videos, like that
Yeah, that
hopefully,
was pretty good.
it's hopefully they pay attention to that. And granted, we're not like here's the thing. It's like, oh, we're not like telling them what they need to do. It's just proposing ideas, you know? And that's
Yeah.
exactly the approach that you need to take when giving feedback,
Hmm.
especially to a developer. Because it's like they're gonna decide the ideas that they like, just like, with 1.10, like, when Gabri made his video or whatever initially, it's like they didn't follow one to one exactly what Gabri was putting out there, with that video.
Yeah.
They
And
took some systems and they were like, huh, we actually like this as a concept and we're going to implement it in our own way, right? But granted,
mhm,
they didn't implement everything else that needed to come along with it, and that's why 1.10 has as many
yeah.
problems as it does, right? Because the full picture isn't there yet. And one thing that I wanted to mention in addition to that is that I want people to keep in mind, right, that the game launched in a very unfortunate and sorry state in terms of balance of PvP. It is probably, barring like Dark Souls 2, that is the worst balance I have ever seen, like in terms of a launch state of a From Software game.
Hmm.
I think that has ever happened, right? And there's many
Hmm.
reasons as to that being the case with the PvE focus and all of that, like I went into earlier, and
I
the scale of Elden
wonder
Ring, but
I wonder also how much of it is also just the fact that the players were more prepared to kind of like dissect this stuff. Because like the
that could be.
DS1, obviously it's meta. Like if you look at it like now, the few people who
Yeah.
still play it,
Yeah.
it's like very, very limited, right? But
Mm-hmm.
back then it probably was not exactly like clear to people, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that for a while there was like, just a maybe a like veil of what is it? Seeming diversity, maybe, right? Even if obviously mechanically things like backstabs might have been like immediately seeming pretty weird and whatever, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. I think the
Elden
overall.
Ring
Oh,
is
yeah, go on.
different because we
Yeah.
have like so many years of like
Yeah,
fucking try
exactly.
hard
Yeah,
PS3 reviewers
yeah,
coming
dude.
in and instantly being like, oh hey, here's Murky in the form of Colossal Sword.
Right, yes, exactly. Right. Yeah, so like in relation to that too, that's definitely important to keep in mind that the overall player knowledge has heightened massively over the years too, and it's important to take into account. And I guess to put a capstone on what I was saying before is the game launched version 1.2, right? in a very sorry state. It took them 7 patches to get the game to where it was in patch 1.9, right? That is an incredible amount of work that they did there. That took 7 patches. That was a long fucking time, right? And honestly, in 1.9, the game felt good in a lot of ways. It did, right? Don't get me wrong. I liked 1.9 for what it was and where they got the game to. There was only a few other things that needed to be tweaked to like perfect the game in that the way it was functioning there, right? And I think the vast majority of people would agree with that. You know, it was in a very good spot. But instead of just continuing down that path from software and yeah, there it is, dude.
What were we looking for?
Yeah. And granted, I think that fuck, I lost my train of thought. What was I on? No, it's all good. What was I talking about? Fuck. 1.9, you know, they could have continued down that path, right? And but the thing was, there was still a lot of problems with that path too, because there were a lot of things that just weren't able to command respect, for one, because people would just run through with poise, passive poise, and just force trade into something with an extremely high damage setup. A lot of the times, power stancing, right? And that was a problem. You couldn't use a fucking one-handed spear. You couldn't use a two-handed spear. You couldn't use all of these other weapons that existed that may as well have not been put in the game at that point in terms of PvP, because you literally could not play them at all. And I think one of the beautiful changes that came with 1.10 was making all of those things actually fucking stagger. You know what I mean? And all of those things actually have a way to command respect now. Regardless of all of the other tweaks that need to be made and the additions that need to come alongside 1.10, and hopefully we get those in the pre-patch, I think that baseline foundation is better than anything that the previous system could have offered. And I know that there's some bias in that because I'm an off-meta enjoyer, but genuinely I believe that that's the case. And
no, I definitely like, what is it? I was kind of annoyed with the sudden thing, because it's like, on the one hand, well, it's like, wow, that's like they actually did such a big change. Like, couldn't imagine them doing such a big overhaul.
Yeah.
Like in any of the previous games or whatever. But I think it was kind of just like, what is it? Maybe a really, like, I guess maybe boiling up kind of like impatience with the what is it? I guess receiving like the game being better, right? Because it's like you're kind of patient patch after patch, and it's like suddenly like this, and then
it's a massive shakeup, and I understand, you know, people's annoyance with that, because it's like, you know, you get accustomed to playing the game in a particular way for so long, it's like, fuck, now I'm back to square one kind of thing. You know what I mean? I definitely get that perspective, but honestly, like for me, I'm very much on the inverse in a lot of ways in relation to that, because it's like a game that I've played for over 2,500 hours at that point just completely got flipped on its head, and I get to effectively learn it all over again in different and new ways. Like, that is so fucking exciting, dude. But I understand that, you know, not everybody sees it that way, you know? But in relation to that, it took them 7 patches, once again, to get the game from where it was in its broken state in version 1.2 all the way to where it was in 1.9. And 1.10 was a massive shakeup and overhaul that fixed a lot of things, but it also caused a lot of new problems, right? And that is what happens when you make a massive overhaul, sweeping change like they did, right? It's going to cause new problems, but it solved some of the old ones. And if it takes From Software even, you know, like half the amount of patches to get 1.10 to a better state than 1.9 was at after 7, that's a W. You see what I mean? And like, I really want to reinforce that, because I know that there's a lot of dooming in relation to especially 1.10, but in the PvP community in general, when it comes to talking about this, you know, and I just want to show a different perspective and give hope towards the future of it, because genuinely, I feel like we still have at least 3 or 4 more patches, you know, before From Software stops support. And genuinely, I see it going beyond that, but, you know, I definitely foresee at least 3 or 4 more, you know? And honestly, I feel like that gives them enough time to actually solve the mainline problems. And once again, I know I said I was gonna cap it off with that, but this is another reinforcing factor. The more broken shit is in the DLC, I welcome it, because that's more time that From Software actually is committed to the balance and support of the game in the first place too. So look at it from that perspective as well, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's definitely going to be broken shit. That is the nature of a new From Software release, and that's also the beauty of it too, because everybody can enjoy using all of this batshit insane stuff before it potentially gets tuned down in certain ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's my rant on that front.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, we can dive into this.
Let me get a few more
Yeah, for sure.
like words out before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm definitely more like, I guess, personally pessimistic in terms of setting my expectations low, but I'd like to, what is it? Like still kind of keep like a, I guess, positive tone. Like it's still like a bit like negative. It's still like, you know, talking about the fact that like I don't really expect a lot of problems. I want to see better, you know, like be better, but I also don't want to kind of like be like irrationally kind of dismissive, like, oh, we're for sure not going to see a fix for this. We're for sure it's gonna like feel worse.
Exactly.
You know.
See, and that's like, what I've always appreciated, because I know, like, back when we were talking when 1.10 dropped, for example, you know, like, we had differing opinions about it. I remember that, you know, but it's like that's what I've always enjoyed about chatting with you, you know, is you don't have that, you see the holistic approach to everything, you know what I mean? You try to see the bigger picture when it comes to all of this stuff, and that's why it's always such a treat to chat with you, and you're not dismissive when it comes to all of these other potentialities and alternatives, right? And also, I appreciate that.
I also just like recognize that, you know, other people have differing interests and wants in the game, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because like, what is it? Well, I've been for a long time like very interested in like competitive depth or whatever in the game.
Yeah.
I think as time's gone on, I've like kind of like realized that it's actually probably really reasonable, or more reasonable, to maybe be with the mindset that like kind of an accepted mindset that the game like maybe should be tuned in a way that ends up with things maybe more mundane and not in that direction, but like at least it feels playable for like the casual audience and like facilitates that. Like the thing is that like I think that it's fine. I think the problem is that or what I have a contention with a lot of the time is just people are often very like not sure how to get there. Like people are really good at diagnosing problems and kind of painting a picture in their heads of like where they want things to be, but like the solutions, everybody, and like this is myself, like has to like accept that we actually don't know, and we're like with how things work in FromSoft and what they can do is completely like a black box. All we can see is the output of that, and thus we can only input like solutions and suggest solutions in a way we think may be able to like be helpful to them in making decisions or ideas. But yeah, it's
I wish that there were more solution centric individuals that existed within society in general, but unfortunately it's such a low yeah, exactly. Tell me about
like, it's actually kind of crazy looking at like other games that, you know, are more like competitively like viable or like, you know, really serve that community better or whatever, right? And then like just seeing, wait a minute, there's people there that are like me, like they have a lot of like similar talents and interests in me, but there's like way more of them, right? And it's like, wait a minute, are these like the self-respecting ones? Like, but yeah, it's like I'm just interested in this game, like regardless. It's just,
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
you know,
You know?
if you duplicate this game and try to make like a PvP, like I think that was my words on Rogue Masters was
Mm.
like I'm
Yeah,
still kind of primarily just interested in Souls. Even if you did make like a PvP game that was kind of like ideal Souls PvP,
yeah.
like it's not guaranteed that I'd be interested in it
Mm-hmm.
because the RPG and everything
Yep.
surrounding it, as scuffed as it
Mm-hmm.
is like a
It's
necessary part for
yeah.
me. You know.
Yeah, it's unparalleled, dude, and that's why From Software is what they are, dude. You know, it's like there's a reason why it's so many of these other Souls likes that are made by different companies. They don't hit for people because it's just they're not doing exactly what From Software is doing, and even if they emulate it very well, they don't have all of the pieces of the puzzle. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that's so prevalent. But yeah,
I
no,
think
just oh, go on. Yeah, yeah.
the number one thing that's appealing to me with in terms of staying with like this franchise and talking about it and learning more about it is just probably two things. It's learning more things about it
Yep.
myself, and then the
Mm-hmm.
second thing is just kind of like the also kind of helping and teaching others and making their helping them,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, learn more about the game and have their desires with the game and like and such be
Yeah.
realized. I think I want
Exactly.
that more because I see one of the most depressing parts about this game is just how like bright-eyed people get about the PvP and stuff like that, and just
Oh,
thinking
upon
about the fact that
initial
like
like playing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and be like,
Yeah.
oh, this thing looks like actually really vibe. I really want to do this like build in PvP,
Mm-hmm.
and just like knowing their dreams will be crushed at some point, you
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Unless
kind of
you
like
unless you have 15 years of prior experience to make it actually work. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
which is why
Which
like
is a very
I wish
rarity. Yeah.
this information was more accessible so
Mm-hmm.
people could like one know how to like better make what they want work despite all these things,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And also know how to not set themselves up for disappointment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's generally it just feels good if
Yeah.
people are more knowledgeable
Exactly.
and like I just really like the sharing of information part.
Yeah, dude. I
Oh
couldn't
my
agree
God.
more. Couldn't agree more.
Oh, like any often I'll like stumble upon like a streamer that they may be uh a more PvE lore whatever focused,
Yeah.
but then they do like a PvP day, and
Mm-hmm.
every time I come in, often
Yeah.
like it's actually crazy to see how interested the chat everybody's with the PvP. And it just makes me
Yep.
like so happy to see and just wish like things were better. So like
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, and like just to your point there too, you know, it's like I've always said this and I genuinely do believe it. If From Software actually chooses to commit to making a solely PvP focused and centric game in the future that they keep support up on and they support it for the long run, that game has the potential to be extremely fucking popular, dude. Like, and just once again, just playing off of what you said there, it's like people fucking love the idea and foundation of being able to fight other players with a combat system like this, dude. You
Yep.
know? And it's really something that does not exist, you know? And one thing that I'll throw out as a reinforcing factor towards this too, if you're familiar with For Honor, this
Hmm.
and granted For Honor isn't like identical in terms of like mechanical functionalities and stuff like that to Souls, but it's I think it holds validity in it, and it's a good comparison. So I remember back when the first like alpha and beta came out, right? And it was a closed alpha, but and I believe an open beta. And when they did the open beta, For Honor was the biggest game on Twitch by a long shot. And it was
Yep.
fucking insane. And it's so and once again that proves that there's that interest for a game
Yeah.
in that style to be PvP centric and focused, right? But unfortunately, the For Honor developers didn't realize what they had and they completely fucking dropped the ball. And
Yeah.
that still just pains me to this day, because For Honor could have been one of the most popular competitive games if the devs actually knew what they fucking had, and they were prepared to support it for the long haul. And it's unfortunate to see that they are still committed at this point too. I fucking love that. I love that they are, but they missed it. They missed their fucking lightning in a bottle moment, man. And
Yeah.
I really, really do believe that if From Software tackles something like that in the future, and here's credence towards them potentially doing something like that too, because Miyazaki said a while back in one of the interviews, he mentioned that he's going to be stepping away from directing every single project, and he's looking forward to giving the green light to company veterans now, that some who have been at the company for just as long as he has, if not longer, that they've shown their prowess, you know, and he feels comfortable allowing them to actually create their own projects now. You know what I mean? And he did that, you know, he directed Armored Core 6 for the, you know, first little bit in development, but then he handed that off to the combat lead that designed Sekiro's combat system. And he fucking killed it. You know what I mean?
And we saw that reflected in the game.
Well, right, yeah. But just to round that out, I think, and once again, I'll go back to Dark Souls 2 as a great example of this. Dark Souls 2, for as much as people, you know, like, give it shit or whatever, Yui Tanimura, the director of the game, he fucking saw so much value in the multiplayer avenues of the game.
The multiplayer stuff was stated by him like the second,
Yeah.
like the second main pillar of the game.
Yes. And
Second to the like overcoming great challenges shit.
Exactly, dude. And like, he saw so much value in that he committed and made Dark Souls 2 the most multiplayer centric experience that From Software has made in the past 15 years. And that just shows the difference in like importance between different directors, you know what I mean? So it's, once again, I just want to cement this, like, it's extremely scary, but also extremely exciting that there's going to be new directors making brand new and creative experiences at From Software, because it's, once again, Dark Souls 2, all of the innovation that it had, even beyond the multiplayer system itself, like, so many of those systems were fucking genius. Don't get me wrong, some of the other ones did not land, and they were fucking rough, right? But for the things that it did do right and innovated upon and transformed, holy mother of God, dude, you know? And Miyazaki said it in one of his most recent interviews that we would not be where we are today without Dark Souls 2 as a game and what it did. And to hear that from Miyazaki himself, just to, you know, just fucking like, piss in the face of all the people that are so dismissive about Dark Souls 2, you know what I mean? Even the main man himself, you know, he was like, we would not be what we are today if not for that game. So yeah, that's that whole discussion. Also, one thing on top of that, we're probably not going to get to the frame data breakdown of the perfume, so we'll save that for the next stream. Oh, what happened? Oh, Discord crashed? Fuck. Fuck. Hold on, let me reset Discord here. The stream's still up, right, guys? I think my Discord crashed. Okay, I'm resetting mine too. We'll get you back in. Stream's up. Okay, good. Nice. Yeah, Discord's taking way longer than it usually takes to boot up too, so it's interesting. Okay. But what was the last thing that you heard?
Something about the deals too in direction and PvP focus.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
Yeah.
You have to go pretty soon, right?
I do, and that's what I was getting at before, just right when you dipped out there before Discord crashed. I was mentioning just that we probably won't be able to get to the frame data for the perfumer weapon, so we'll save that for the subsequent stream,
we'll
probably.
Save it for
But
another stream.
yeah,
I have a lot
sounds.
of thoughts too, but
Yeah.
it's, you know, extra content for them.
Yeah, exactly. But just to round up my thoughts before we part ways here, I do want to point this out too, that Miyazaki has expressed interest in battle royales as a genre, which is very interesting too, just in the concept. But more than that, because he just kind of mentioned that in passing, But what he actually really spent a lot of time talking about in one of the interviews was Escape from Tarkov and how he really fucking likes that dynamic. And for those who aren't familiar, Escape from Tarkov's whole thing is it's an extraction-based shooter, and the whole gameplay loop is that you drop into a map, and the map is filled with extremely intelligent AI, characters that are very similar in look and everything, right, to just another player. But you also have, in tandem with that, you have actual other players too. So like every single engagement that you get into, every single firefight, it gives you that adrenaline rush because you don't know whether or not you're fighting an AI or a player, right? And it's very similar to the system that they created, you know, or innovated upon conceptually, that being the invasion system, right? So you go into this map, you get all of this gear, and then you extract out, and then you can either run the risk of taking all of that gear in again that you just acquired and risk losing it all if you get killed, but you can potentially get even better shit if you take what you just got in, or you can have the option to store all of the stuff that you just got and save that for later, and then go in baseline with just a pistol again. You know what I mean? So like that... He's expressing that interest, dude. And on that point, as to a scrapped system that they had planned to be in Sekiro, was players actually invading the other player's world, but they wouldn't be Wolf, right? They would actually take control over the mini-boss. That is a cut system that they were playing around with, an idea. So like, once again, they do want to innovate upon all of those multiplayer systems, you know?
Miyazaki has constantly talked about like these sort of really innovative like networking ideas that he's like, especially back on the DS1 days, he would like rant about them all together, and it was like, you know, fucking the people he was working with would, you know, have to listen to it. But just to close out here, like,
yeah,
I would really like to save this. This is going to be a really nice discussion if we can continue it in
yeah,
the
for sure.
next thing.
Yeah.
But
no, like write it down in chat, yeah, so we can remember and stuff.
Yeah. I'll write a note on it, right as I say it. But
okay.
My kind of like dream, like from software game, would be one that's like 50% RPG and then 50% like PvP, multiplayer, like focus, just completely interlinked. And that would be something really ambitious, but it would be the most like fucking addicting game I could imagine.
No shit, right? Like that gameplay loop is just, oh, it's absolutely bliss, dude. Like, oh my god. But with that being said, thank you so much, Amirah, for joining me for this stream. This was an absolute fucking blast, and I hope everybody in chat that's been watching and was along for the ride had an absolute blast as well. But without further ado, I guess if you wanna plug anything, or you know, if anything like that, please do.
Nah, it's fine.
Okay.
Everybody here probably
probably already knows anyway. But all right, well, until next time, I look forward to our next chat, dude.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
See you later, Frosty.
Later. Yo, dude. We're back, dude. But no, I hope you guys enjoyed this chat. I apologize that I wasn't able to keep up with everything that was being said. I know it's an unrealistic expectation for me to want to be able to have a massive detailed response to everybody in chat. I know that I'll never be able to fully do that, but I appreciate you guys being here nonetheless, and it's an absolute pleasure, dude. And I hope you guys enjoyed the stream as much as I did, dude. Holy shit, dude. Well, alright, dude, I'm off to, I'm off to have the dentist absolutely drill and rail my teeth. So, until next time, my friends, there might be a late stream yet tonight, but if that's not the case, then I'll definitely be streaming tomorrow for you guys. So, a good drilling, dude. Indeed. The pickle expert, indeed, you sir, dude. Also, Amirah, don't forget to check out the last hour and a half of the last VOD, dude. It's definitely a gem. More pickle jar theory later. Yes, dude, without a doubt. Alright. without further ado, my friends, let's see who else is streaming here. Who could we potentially raid into? Let's see. Who's streaming here, dude? Oh, we got Fant of Arsonist, dude. So we'll send y'all over to him, dude. So that works out perfectly. Beautiful. Alright, my friends. Sayonara and goodbye. Until next time, my friends. Peace for now.
Tonight's forecast. A freeze is coming.